All right, guys, we're back. If you're just showing up and you're watching this on a delay, welcome back. This is the afternoon session, um, and enjoy. This is a interesting trial so far. The prosecution sucks. Basically, this trial should have ended a long time ago. It
All right,
should have
good
even
afternoon,
happened.
everyone. And the
All
answer to
right,
your question
I'm
is
gonna be
yes.
quiet.
And it's a number one buzz is what it's called. But can anybody tell me why they'd call it a partial? Why would they call that a partial? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. McGinnis. We're going to continue where we left off this morning. You were describing the situation where the defendant shot Mr. Rosenbaum. I want to talk about where you were at that location and what was going on through your mind. Earlier, I think you said your eyes were focused on the barrel of the gun. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
When you saw what was going on in front of you between Mr. Rittenhouse and Mr. Rosenbaum, what was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, at the point at which Mr. Rittenhouse turned around and Mr. Rosenbaum was continuing to advance, that's when I realized that they were going to, I guess, collide or meet, but it was clear based on the speed with which Mr. Rosenbaum was running and obviously what was shouted beforehand that they weren't coming together to have a friendly meeting. And given that Mr. Rittenhouse was armed, I became extremely worried because I was behind Rosenbaum that I was going to be caught in whatever was about to happen.
Did you feel like you were positioned in the line of fire?
I did, and that's why I altered my trajectory slightly as the shots were being fired.
When those shots were being fired, did anything happen to you?
What exactly do you mean by that?
Did you get hit?
Nope.
Did you feel at that moment like you had gotten hit?
Well, I told the police the night of because they were asking me, where my eyes were. So as as Rosenbaum was lunging forward, my eyes were on the gun. But as the shots, when the shots were fired, I did actually change my. I looked down at my legs because it's difficult for me to say whether it was a sound or a sensation, but there was feeling sound that something went past my legs, and I looked down, and then I looked back up, and I actually stepped my feet to make sure that I was fine.
You told the detective that you felt something on your leg, and your first thought was that you had been shot, correct?
I was worried of that, absolutely. I'm not sure whether it was something that actually, actually contacted my pants, or whether it was just the, sensation sound, but it caused me to look down, and I did, stamp my legs to make sure that they felt okay.
Did you feel that the defendant's actions of turning around and pointing the gun and discharging those rounds put you in danger?
I would say that given where I was, certainly I was in danger, yes.
Let me back up 1 second. We've talked a lot about Mr. Rosenbaum's actions towards Mr. Rittenhouse, and I just want to clarify one part of that. At any point, did you see Mr. Rosenbaum touch the defendant's gun?
It's hard for me to say whether he actually made contact with the gun, but what I can say is that they were extremely close, and that if he did, then it didn't alter the trajectory of the weapon. So if he did, it wasn't like, he got a hand on it. It would maybe barely grazed it, but they were very close. And it was actually, since I was behind him, his body was partially obstructing the barrel of the gun at that time. So it was hard for me to say definitively whether or not he actually made contact, but not that I saw. I couldn't say definitively.
I couldn't hear the last
Which part?
last sentence.
I couldn't say definitively whether or not there was contact made.
We know from all the videos, from all the evidence, Mr. Rittenhouse fires 4 rounds. You testified earlier, Mr. Rosenbaum winds up face down on the ground, correct?
Correct.
What did you do then?
Well, after the shots were fired, there were other shots that were going off, and at this point, I'm aware of the fact that that's probably gunfire. Mr. Rittenhouse, from my perspective, had run away, and Mr. Rosenbaum was lying behind a car, and so I knew that he was, given the shots were fired at such close range, that he had to have been hit. And he was lying lifeless on the ground, and so I saw him behind the car, and I saw it as both a place that I could get safety, but also help him. And so I ran over. I said something along the lines of, "Are you okay? I'm going to flip you over slowly." And then I flipped him over, and at that point, other people were arriving, and that's basically all. The rest is on video. But we were trying to. I presume that there were, given the weapon that he was using, that there had to be big wounds. And as people arrived, we were looking for those. And then somebody shouted that there was a hospital across the street. At which point, I told one individual to grab his other arm, and we carried him across the street. Should I just continue with?
Let me stop
Okay.
you there for a second. Can we please play Exhibit 19? 19? Oh, I gotta turn this. Is it hard for you to see that?
I certainly don't like to watch it.
I understand. I wanted to show that to you because there's a moment after the shooting where you are taking your shirt off. Why did you do that?
Because I presume that, given how close they were, that he had been hit, and that my dad was an ER doctor, and if something's bleeding, you apply pressure. So that was the goal with doing that.
We see in the video that the defendant runs around the cars and comes close to you. And again, like I said earlier, we're going to try and go back to that moment in time. I
Yes.
know benefit of hindsight, but at that particular moment as you're standing there next to Mr. Rosenbaum's body, did you know that was the defendant?
I did not.
What did you think was going on with that figure next to you?
Well, the way that I saw it from it was kind of a tunnel vision situation. So I was looking at Mr. Rosenbaum on the ground and attempting to find where the wounds were, and it was like a pair of legs arrived next to me from my peripheral vision, and I just screamed, "Call 911." And then I saw a hand reach into the pocket, and I assumed that that was what was happening. And actually, when I got up, I did, watching the video after the fact, I was facing Mr. Rittenhouse, but given that I was in the process of removing my shirt, I was actually looking at the ground, and I told the police, and I actually remember the moment the next morning that I realized that that was Mr. Rittenhouse when I saw the video.
If you had known in that moment that that was Mr. Rittenhouse, would you have felt in danger?
I think I felt in danger anyways, but I certainly, I think, would have maybe changed my tone of voice. I can't really imagine what I would have done, but I mean, I was afraid in that moment anyways, so it's hard for me to say.
The individual who you sensed next to you, we now know the defendant, you said he pulled out his phone.
I just saw his hand go into his pocket, and that, like, from my perspective, that's all that I saw. And I assumed that, that was, I had said call 911, hand went into the pocket. I assumed that was what was happening.
Did you hear the defendant say anything at any point after he shot Mr. Rosenbaum?
I did not, no.
Can we please play Exhibit 15? And just so you know what to expect, sir, this is going to be the video you took of Mr. Rosenbaum's body. I apologize, but I need to show it. I'm sorry.
You okay? Just don't move, man. Don't move. All right, can I flip you over real quick? Fuck. I'm gonna flip you over real quick, bro. Here, flip over real quick. Just gotta get pressure on this, dude. Where's it at?
Where is it? On it. Turn around.
Where's it at, dude? Get a light on it. Get a light. Give me a fucking light.
Put pressure on it. Put fucking
Where?
pressure on it.
Where,
Turn
dude?
around.
Where? Where's the hole?
Where you at?
Get the
It's
fucking
right
mask
here.
off.
In his head. Come on. Put pressure. Put pressure. Put pressure.
Call the police. Call the
Put a
police.
lot of pressure. Hey, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. You shot him.
I didn't. I don't know.
Hey, you're okay. You're okay.
Shit's the pressure on this shit.
But you gotta keep him alive.
Hey, bro, just talk to me, bro. What's your name, bro?
Stay with me.
Hey, what's your name, bro? What's your name, bro?
Is y'all thinking the hospital right here?
Yeah, get him up. We got a car. We got a car. Yo, keep pressure on it.
I got him. Get him. I got him.
Keep pressure on that.
Get his arms.
I got you, dude. I got you.
Please, guys, make sure he has a hold.
Keep pressure. Keep pressure.
The video we just watched was one you were recording, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Earlier you described holding your phone up as the chase is going on, and the phone wasn't set to record video.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you realize that and make the switch?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no clue. I don't know how it went from photo to record, and I don't know how it started at that particular moment. I actually, I did call my CEO of my company immediately afterwards from the hospital and told him that I had recorded a homicide. And then I looked at my phone and I realized that it wasn't recording at the time.
I think you testified a little bit ago, and I want to pick up where you left off, that you attempted to treat Mr. Rosenbaum, and then there's a process by which he is carried over to the hospital. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Can you tell us about your involvement in that process?
Well, my hand was on his head and I was under his right shoulder. There was another individual under his left shoulder, and then there were maybe one or two people carrying his legs. And we ran across the street, and there was somebody who told us that he worked at the hospital and that we should put him in the car to get him there quicker, at which point he opened the tailgate. We loaded him into the back of the car, and there were people actually, there was a large crowd around the back of the car, couldn't close the tailgate, and so we just said, forget the tailgate, and we drove down a small ramp, and at that point I was alone in the back with Mr. Rosenbaum, and I was just telling him that we're going to have a beer together afterwards and it was all going to be okay. And once we arrived, a gate had to go up. And I helped, some medical personnel came out with a gurney, and then I helped them load him onto the gurney, and then
Your attention was drawn.
Sorry, I know what the fuck's going on.
Mr. Rosenbaum's body. There's another video. Was he ever responsive to you?
I believe that when I was talking to him in the vehicle, I like to think that he could hear me. It seemed that his eye was looking at me, but it was kind of rolling back, and then when I started talking, it rolled back kind of towards me, and I was looking at him. So I'm not sure if he heard me, but I think perhaps he did.
Of the gun, is that fair to say?
That's-
Did he
yes.
say anything? When you saw what was going on in front
was
of you between
having
Mr.
difficulty
Rittenhouse and
even,
Mr. Rosenbaum,
breathing.
what was going through your mind at that moment? Just so we're clear, from the
Well,
moment you
at
came
the
upon his
point at
body
which
after the
Mr.
shooting
Rittenhouse turned
until
around
the
and
end,
Mr. Rosen,
did you ever hear Mr. Rosenbaum say anything at all?
no.
After you helped the hospital personnel get him on a gurney, did you stay at the hospital for a while after that?
Yes. I was, number one, covered in blood, and number two, I didn't have a shirt, and the police actually locked down the hospital. My coworkers, Shelby and Jorge, came to the hospital, and actually Shelby literally offered me the shirt off her back so that I could, not be conspicuous if I tried to leave. But then the police said, you're going to, can you come to the station? I mean, it wasn't really an ask. It was more of a, you're coming to the station. But, I had already talked with my mom and my CEO, and I was resolute and cooperating fully with the police. So I said, whatever you guys need me to do. And I stayed at the hospital for maybe an hour or 40 minutes before a squad car came and got me. And there was actually a detective or a uniformed police officer who asked me some questions while I was at the hospital, and I gave him my phone.
While you were at the hospital, did you see any other folks that had been shot or injured that night?
I did. I saw Mr. Grusowitz.
Grosskreutz?
Grosowitz.
Where did you see him at?
So right after I loaded Mr. Rosenbaum onto the gurney, before I could even grasp what was happening, he came in to there were like the doors that we came in were on one side of the hospital, but then there were like the emergency room sliding doors, like the public access, and he came in through there with an officer, and he was holding his arm, and I saw his arm.
Can you describe what you saw?
It was his bicep was effectively gone, and there was just a lot of blood.
Can you tell us in your own words how you were feeling at that moment?
It was just surreal. It was, I felt scared about what was going to happen, what I would have to do after that, because I knew, that what I had seen. I became more worried once I realized that my phone wasn't recording.
Why do you say that?
Because that made me realize that it was my eyes that saw it, and that rather than just being able to show, I'd have to tell.
Like you're doing today?
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Richard?
Yes, Your Honor. After you left the hospital, you went to the Kenosha Police Department, correct?
Yes.
And you were interviewed shortly after this happened by a detective, Separus.
Yes.
And that's not either of these two individuals here, correct?
No.
And you gave them video, taped, and sound recorded statement, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And that was in a room with a small table and carpeted walls.
Yes.
And you stated to Detective Separus, and I'm quoting from your interview, the guy who I interviewed was trying to evade him. When you're using the term guy who you interviewed, who are you referring to?
Mr. Rittenhouse.
Okay. And he was trying to evade whom?
It depends on what instance you're talking about, but initially it was very difficult for me to tell who he was evading because the street was dark and I was a ways back. There were a number of individuals kind of moving in his direction, and there was a lot of noise, so it wasn't clear to me who he was evading initially when he started to run.
Okay. But you used the word him, which would be singular. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. I believe that in that same statement, though, I said that there were a couple of individuals, including the man who was shot.
Okay. I'll read from your statement at page 20. And there were other people who were moving very quickly, and I noticed two guys who were moving quickly. One of the ones was the guy who ended up, I guess, getting shot and dying, and they were moving towards him. So he was, according to what I saw, trying to evade these individuals.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the individuals is the guy who gets shot, Mr. Rosenbaum,
Correct.
and the other one is somebody who, to this day, you would not know who it is.
No. Yeah. It was dark, and it was very difficult to identify. I don't think I could. No.
And you had interviewed Kyle before this shooting, maybe 15 minutes?
It was like 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm off of
I had
sorry.
I have the metadata
Okay.
in my phone, so
Okay.
according to the metadata in the phone, it was about 14 minutes.
Okay. And when you met Kyle and you interviewed him, he was not menacing to you, was he?
Beyond that he had a weapon, no.
Okay. So what was menacing was the weapon.
When I said menacing in that context, it was the situation that was menacing, which is a number of armed individuals. And specifically in that instance, I was most nervous about the individuals on the roof because I couldn't see them. So it was just more concerning to me because at least, you know, the folks on the ground, I could see them.
Okay. And Kyle was one of the ones on the ground.
Yes.
And the interview which Mr. Binger took from and referred to the menacing word was you being interviewed by a Kyle Horton, and that interview was 26 minutes long, correct? Mm-hmm. And you used the word menacing once.
I guess so. You know, you went through it. So I'll take your word for it, but I don't recall saying it another time.
Okay. And this is your word to Detective Separus. No, it's cool, but he did. I mean, the interview, he was very cordial. Detective, yeah, you, very nice and almost seemed like innocent. Almost seemed like too much for his own good. Do you remember that statement?
Yes, I do.
And you're referring to him being too innocent for his own good, correct?
I was alluding to the fact that it seemed to me that a lot of the people, protesters, rioters, whatever you want to call them, were casting negative looks in his direction, and he wasn't. He didn't seem to be aware of that.
Meaning Kyle wasn't aware of how the people
How pissed off the people were. Not in his group, just the group. Generally speaking, the people who were on the ground, who had just been, you know, basically volleyed back by the law enforcement. Those people, not the other armed individuals.
The rioters didn't like the people with long weapons. Is that a fair statement? The way you perceive it.
That's a fair statement in my perception. Yes. I think it was also additionally that I was referring to the fact that he was shouting medical, and that people were looking at him negatively, kind of like angry when they heard, you know, him, and then saw his, I guess, presume his weapon or whatever it was that made them mad.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. That's where you talked about the duality, a medic having a gun, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he might not have perceived the problem with that dual role based upon your conversations with him.
Yeah, he might not have perceived how other people perceived him in that situation.
Okay. Reading from a statement from you. I don't know if it was the fire extinguisher or if it was a piece of metal or something kicked something. I have no idea. But when I turned back, the fire extinguisher is gone, and he had the AR-15 kind of like aiming downwards. And at that point, they were heading into the parking lot. And he was kind of facing backwards, and the individual who got shot was advancing towards him, and he actually dodged. He dodged around, and then he ran backwards, so he almost like he turned his back a little bit. You're describing him running away from Mr. Rosenbaum there, correct?
Correct.
And as Mr. Rittenhouse is running away from him, Mr. Rosenbaum is in pursuit, correct?
Correct.
And at one point, Kyle turns around with the weapon, and you're talking about it being in a downward position, but towards Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yes. Are you talking about the final instance where he turned around? Or
The first instance.
Yes.
Okay. And this isn't where Mr. Rosenbaum gets shot, correct?
Correct. That was, he was kind of up on the curb, and he kind of headed in the direction towards the car lot, and then he stopped and turned.
And then he continues running, and Mr. Rosenbaum continues to chase Mr. Rittenhouse.
Correct.
Didn't he see? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. The instance where I described that there were two individuals, that was kind of at that point in time. So I didn't zero in on Mr. Rosenbaum being kind of the the one person pursuing him until after that first kind of juke and run.
Okay. And do you remember Mr. Rittenhouse turning around in the parking lot when Mr. Rosenbaum is chasing him, just Mr. Rosenbaum chasing him?
Yes.
Okay. And this is before the final confrontation.
When he turned around initially, he was kind of on the sidewalk before they got into the lot. And that was when it wasn't clear that Mr. Rosenbaum was the sole, because it was very dark. So perhaps, I'm assuming that was him, but also like I was fumbling with my phone at that juncture and I was hanging up with Shelby. That was kind of all happening in that simultaneous moment. So it's hard, I didn't identify Mr. Rosenbaum until we kind of entered the lot where it was very light,
Okay.
well lit.
And when he enters the lot, Mr. Rosenbaum, it's Kyle and Mr. Rosenbaum really in that area where the shooting occurred. There's nobody else.
Yes, correct.
And he runs, according to your vantage point, basically as far as he can.
Yeah, I did state to the police the night of that it appeared that when he stopped, he entered an area where there was like a car parked and a wall. I mean, it would have been conceivable that, you could have, the car was like not, it wasn't up against the wall, like you could conceivably have continued, but it seemed to me, my perception that night that he, had entered a bit of a dead end, or at least felt that way.
And he turned and looks at Mr. Rosenbaum.
Correct.
And Mr. Rosenbaum knows that he's chasing an armed individual, correct?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, it's speculation.
He's seen the gun.
We don't, well, it is, you don't know what he
Okay,
saw.
I'll ask it this way.
Okay.
Mr. Rittenhouse turns around, has a firearm in his arms, hands, correct?
Correct.
The AR, as we refer to
Correct.
it.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenbaum is running towards Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
Correct.
And there's nothing between those two individuals to block Mr. Rosenbaum's view, correct?
Correct.
Could have stopped at any time once he sees an armed individual, correct?
I assume he could have, yes.
He kept advancing.
Correct.
And he continues to advance until he makes a lunge for the weapon, correct?
Yes. It appeared that he was lunging for the front portion of the weapon.
Okay, which would be the business end of an AR-15.
Yes.
And you know, as you sit here today, that he yelled the words F you, but the whole words, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What was the tone of his voice as he yelled that?
Very angry.
As he goes at Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
Correct.
And there's been some statements about him shot in the back. Don't dispute it. If you're Mr. Rittenhouse and I'm Mr. Rosenbaum, did you ever see him turned away from you back to Mr. Rittenhouse?
No.
Okay? And your vantage point would allow you to see if in fact this is the proverbial shooting an innocent person in the back, correct?
You mean, was I close enough?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and as he shot, you never saw him turn around, look at you directly, and begin running away for the back shot, correct?
Correct.
You to the detective that evening describing the confrontation between Rosenbaum and Kyle Rittenhouse. In my best estimation, I think this individual and possibly the other individuals decided they were going to get his gun from him, correct?
I'm going to object to that. It calls for speculation.
It's his belief.
But, you can explore what appeared to him to have happened, but when you say belief, people don't talk the way lawyers want them to. Lawyers want very strict adherence to just perception by the senses. In ordinary discourse, people don't talk that way. They combine a whole array of things that they see and perceive with all of their senses and their experience in life, and then they put that into the form of an impression. And now the lawyers, and I'm not singling out one lawyer or another, lawyers typically, they want, well, just as was referred to earlier, just the facts. I'm going to let the witness testify as one would ordinarily discourse with others, but keep in mind there's a huge component of things other than what he perceived with his senses, and then I'll let the state redirect on those issues, but he can answer the question.
I'll read the statement to you, and then I'll ask you why you believed it or why you thought that, okay?
Yep.
But in my best estimation, I think that the individual and possibly other individuals decided that they were going to get his gun from him. Do you remember telling Detective Sepperson?
I do, yes.
What was that statement based upon?
It was based upon the way that they were advancing towards him. It seemed that they were trying to move quickly, such that they could catch him.
Okay. And from your vantage point, remembering back to that evening, did you see that Kyle Rittenhouse was with anyone that was friendly to him that night?
That night?
At that time?
At that moment, no. Mr. Balch was with him when I was walking behind them, and then after I saw Yellow Pants guy, that was the last I saw Mr. Balch. So he was alone
Okay.
after that.
Statement from you to the detective. And it is very clear from the moment I focused on that situation between those two that the unarmed guy got shot, was trying to get his gun. And you remember making that statement?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And what is that statement based on?
That was the motion of him running and reaching for the front portion of the rifle.
Okay. And that evening, you told the detective he paused, so it looked like he was very close. You used the word very close. What does that mean to you?
Well, I was behind Mr. Rosenbaum, and Mr. Rittenhouse was on the other side of me and Rosenbaum, and so it was clear that as he lunged forward, they almost made contact. It wasn't clear if they did or not, but very close, just meaning like close enough to just reach out and
Okay.
touch someone.
And your perception was that evening, as you watched it, he was going for the barrel of the gun.
Correct.
And the detective followed up on that to pin that down, and you stated, but he was certainly trying to grab the barrel of the gun. You were certain of that night.
Your Honor, I'm going to raise my objection again. This is speculation.
There certainly is an element of conclusion in the witness's answer, but that's the way people talk in ordinary discourse and convey information one to another. So they have to weigh it in terms of its reliability, knowing that it's not like a series of photographic images. So overruled.
I think it was very clear to me that he was reaching specifically for the weapon, and because that's where his hands went.
Okay. And your statement to the detective, yeah, so it was like the guy he shot was like this, and then he was probably, and he leaned in, so he was like this. And so at that time he was shot, he was kind of leaning forward. You were describing to the detective what you observed Mr. Rosenbaum doing, correct?
Correct.
Could you describe that or show us?
I mean, it's probably easier to show, to be
Please.
honest. It's just like, he was in a low position. He's in a low position running, and then when he went for the front portion of the rifle, he lunged forward like that.
Okay, so you've shown somebody in the tack position, you lunge forward and putting both of your arms out, and you're saying going for the barrel.
I would say he was more like kind of in an athletic position, like you would if you were, like running as fast as you could. And then, I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part?
So he's running as fast as he could, and then you showed both of your arms going out almost like a Superman?
It was like a little bit, I think Superman would be kind of, straight out. It was more like out and down because the rifle was aimed, like, it was lower than where his hands were, so his hands were actually going kind of downward as well,
And
towards the barrel.
When he goes for the barrel, what does Kyle do with the gun?
He dodged around it
And then does what?
and then leveled the weapon and fired. And it wasn't necessarily leveled because Mr. Rosenbaum was in a lower position, so it was still somewhat angled towards the ground, but it was, leveled at his body.
This exchange, ask you if you remember it. That's the only reason why I say that there were more people involved. Detective, okay? In trying to corner this guy or whatever. Detective, because I just heard a lot of yelling and a lot of really fast movement. That's more talking about what you observed at the beginning, correct?
Correct, yes.
But you thought this was a group of people, at least two, trying to get Kyle's gun from him when he's alone.
If I were to, I believe that I was speculating that that's what they were trying to do based on what I saw.
Okay. And the shots that you heard, there's a shot, and then there's Kyle's shots, correct?
Correct.
The shot that you hear first, can you say whether it's in front of you, behind you, to the side of you?
So, like, there's like the building, that's the actual building in that lot. That's to my right as I'm running. And Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Rittenhouse are in front of me. And it was like to my left.
Okay. So as you're advancing, it would be from the area of the sidewalk.
Correct.
And you've looked at numerous videos now, not that day, but since, and you actually see the flash of gunfire.
Correct.
Your statement, getting towards the end, and it was pretty clear to me that the guy with the gun was trying to evade the other guy, and that's throughout this event until he stops.
Yes, that's an accurate statement.
He did not want to be caught by Mr. Rosenbaum.
That is correct.
And when he finally did turn and point the gun, Rosenbaum kept advancing.
Correct.
And Kyle Rittenhouse had no way of knowing that this was a three-person grouping. In other words, him, Rosenbaum, you. Is that a fair statement?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. I don't know how this witness could testify as to what Kyle Rittenhouse knew or did not know.
Well, his actual question was not what he knew, but rather whether he had, he asked whether, or he said he had no way of knowing. I think I'd be more comfortable if you rephrased your question.
To your knowledge, did Kyle Rittenhouse know that you were behind Mr. Rosenbaum?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. I don't know how this witness would know what Kyle Rittenhouse knew. It's a complete speculation as to the defendant's state of mind.
Overruled. Well, I think it would need to be phrased in terms of, did the physical circumstances suggest that Mr. Rittenhouse would have been in a position to know?
Sir, would Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse been in a position to know that you were behind Mr. Rosenbaum?
He was certainly close enough, but I wasn't looking at where he was looking. I was looking, like I said, at that point at the front portion of the weapon. It was quite light in that area, so it's very possible that if he had been looking in my direction, he certainly would have seen me.
But he's running away from where you are until he turns, and he has this guy coming at him, correct?
Correct.
And if Mr. Rosenbaum had stopped 5 or 7 feet away from him, would he have been shot?
I'm going to object, Your Honor.
Now, earlier there was, well, I'll go a little bit further. You're giving aid to Mr. Rosenbaum after he's been shot 4 times. Were those shots slow, bang, 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 or were they in quick succession?
It was extremely quick. The night of, I said it was 3 or 4 because it was so quick that it was hard for me to count.
And now everyone agrees it's 4, and you do too?
Yes.
Okay. And after he's shot, you pick him up and you try to carry him to the hospital, but you stop at a vehicle, correct?
Correct.
What's happening to you as you're stopping or trying to get him to this vehicle? What's happening to you?
Well, there was a very large crowd around us. Everyone was yelling. I was getting bumped, and I thought that I was just being bumped by the crowd, but then, I got bumped a little bit harder, and then I felt a fist hit my face as I was loading him into the back of the vehicle.
And you, sir, I felt what in my face?
A fist.
So there's a large group of people surrounding you and the other individual carrying Mr. Rosenbaum to the car.
Yes.
And people in that crowd were striking at you?
I can only identify the one person because, again, I thought I had a lot of adrenaline, and I didn't think it was anything beyond getting, being in a mob, a crowd of people who were all, I guess very animated. A lot of people were yelling, and I didn't really feel it until it was like a hard punch to the side of my face, and I turned around and saw the individual, and he was pointing at me, like he was mad at me.
Like he wanted more punches at you, is that it?
Yeah, I at that point I was actually just entering the rear of the vehicle, and so he hit me, and I looked back, and I actually kicked my legs towards where he was at the tailgate to get him away from me.
Thank you. And you go to that interview, and they're very interested in your phone, correct?
Correct.
You are told that they're either going to take your phone and get a search warrant, or you'll give consent, correct?
Correct.
And you don't want to give up everything in your phone because it's your job and your livelihood. Is that a fair statement?
I didn't want to lose possession of my phone because it is my livelihood, yes.
Okay. Did they tell you they weren't going to go into your phone because of Marcy's Law?
I don't recall that.
If somebody said that, you'd remember that, correct?
Yeah, what they said was, can we take your phone to download the videos? And I gave it to him. I don't recall anything about Marcy's Law.
They told you if you didn't give them consent, they were going to get a search warrant, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you were not written a curfew ticket, correct?
That's correct. I was not written one.
Now, you also testified about how at this riot, demonstration, whatever you want to call it, there were more firearms than you'd seen at other places, correct?
Yes, well, I would say the most firearms was probably Seattle, but yes.
Okay. Portland, you can't open carry or you'll be arrested, correct?
I believe so.
New York, you can't open carry or you'll be arrested.
That's for sure.
For sure. Washington, D.C., can't open carry or you'll be arrested.
Correct.
Wisconsin, you can open carry.
Correct. You know
So
better
that
than I
makes,
do.
that
Yes.
makes for a prevalence of guns.
Yes. And I believe the same in Seattle as well.
And the second night of the riots, you came to Kenosha and you saw the car source lot with all the cars, not the one where the shooting happened, but the one right below your hotel burned,
Yeah, it was burning every night.
okay? But that was the night where most all of the cars went up.
Are you referring to Monday night?
Yes.
Yes. The
Okay.
night before the shooting, you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry to make myself clear. Monday night, the first car source lot with maybe 30, 40 cars goes up,
Yes.
okay? And the fire department didn't come.
That was when we interviewed the individuals with the power washer and the buckets of water. I saw the fire department responding to a different fire at a furniture store, but not in front of that lot.
Okay, and that's the night where some cars got put on fire at Car Source 2, and they were trying to put it out with a power washer and I think buckets.
Like literally buckets and trash cans of
Okay,
water.
and that was citizens, not the fire department.
That's correct.
And when, and then I'll end, you had no fear or problem from Kyle or Mr. Balch when you went out on that patrol with them?
I would say that I was certainly fearful just in a general sense, given that there were weapons and that it was a chaotic environment.
Were you fearful of Mr. Balch and Mr. Rittenhouse?
At the time that I was walking with them?
Yes.
I was fearful of the potentiality that, those weapons would be used. So I would say like I was elevated in terms of my assessment of the risk involved in the situation. But I wouldn't say that I was specifically fearful of them individually. I was
Okay.
fearful of what might happen.
You're fearful of the situation in Kenosha on August 25th, 2020, all the armed people, the rioting, the chaos, and the social unrest,
And the guns, yeah.
and the guns.
Yeah.
And both sides had guns.
I actually didn't see, I know after seeing video, I do see that now, but the only armed individuals that I saw that night were in front of the business.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Can we play, can we have Exhibit 25 ready, please? Mr. McGinnis, I have an exhibit up on the screen, which is the Exhibit 25. We've shown this to you before. I've heard you testify that you were, well, let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that at the moment this video is paused at, as we see on that screen, You are not yet on the screen. Is that fair to say?
I think that sounds right. I think I was just off the screen to the right, up the street.
And you've talked about your perception of person of interest number 2, which is the one with the square around them, that is the defendant, and what you believe was going on when he arrived at the car source lot. And you've talked about one or more individuals that are after him, he's having to evade them, things like that. There's been some testimony about that, correct?
Correct.
You've already acknowledged that you were further back, it was dark, it was hard for you to see exactly. Is that fair to say?
It's fair, yes.
Okay. What I'd like to do now, Mr. McGinnis, is I'm going to have this video played, and I would like you to pay attention to that area. And we have person of interest number 1 identified, that is Joseph Rosenbaum. Other than him, I would like it if you would point out for us the other individual or individuals that you saw chasing the defendant or trying to corner him or somehow running after him or however you want to describe it. The other individuals that were involved that you believe you saw. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't say chasing, I would say it was like they were directing their attention in his direction and moving towards him.
Okay.
But it wasn't, it wasn't like a dead sprint chase or anything like that.
However you want to put it, I'm not quibbling, but whatever those people are, if you could please, that little wooden pointer in
Yeah.
front of you, let us know when you see them. We'll pause, and then you can point them out for us. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's go forward. Thanks.
It was, so basically it's the individuals like in the middle of the street.
Okay, can we pause? Okay, do you want us to go back a little bit?
Sure.
Let's go back 10 seconds.
Because there was a crowd in the middle of the street, but they're basically on the side of the sidewalk.
Why don't you, yeah, please point at it for us. Okay, so you're circling a group of people that are near the sidewalk in front of Car Source. Are you able to count how many people there are there?
It's hard to say. 8, 10.
And do you want us to go back any further, or is this far enough for you to show us what you're referring to?
It was just this group right here.
Okay.
And there was also, it's hard to tell here, but like there was just a group here in the street, and then I believe it, like I said, it was dark. It was hard to say. There was shouting coming from this direction as well.
Can we please play the video forward a little bit? Now, pause, please. Okay, I will, yeah. Madam Court Reporter has asked if we can make sure that you have the microphone close.
Yes.
I know I asked you to go up there, so that's
Yep.
my fault. What I'd like to do, if we could, is rewind 20 seconds, please. Okay. And I don't know if I can phrase this easily, Mr. McGinnis. I don't know how to put it. Do you feel like you would be able to point out any folks other than Mr. Rosenbaum that are moving towards the defendant or running after him I know you said their attention, and that can mean many things. So I guess I'm interested in physical movements. Are you able to point out any individuals that moved physically towards the defendant other than Mr. Rosenbaum?
Do you want to play it again?
Yeah, let's play it again. And I'd like you to keep an eye, well, before we start playing, I'm going to ask you, Mr. McGinnis, if you could please try and keep an eye on that for us and let us know if you see any of those folks. Maybe you can point them out for us. I'm interested in physical movements towards the defendant. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it.
Can you go back one more time?
Yeah, sure. Let's go back 10 seconds. Is that far enough?
I just won, I guess, 10 more.
Sure, let's do 10 more. Can we go back 10 more seconds? All right, let's, was that 10 seconds? Can we- Okay, this is the beginning? Why don't we, can we go all the way back to the beginning of the video? All right, we'll start it from there.
I think that so when I told that to police, it was basically you can see me running up. There, just to my left, in the center of the street, there are some individuals who were yelling, and I guess it's not clear to me, you know, whether they were just advancing in that direction and yelling, or advancing specifically towards Mr. Rittenhouse. But the individuals that I was referring to when I said that were in the bottom right portion of the screen. As I was running up, I basically ran past them.
It's clear from the video that Mr. Rosenbaum is specifically coming after Mr. Rittenhouse, chasing after him. The impression, maybe I misunderstood, it seemed to be that you were indicating you saw other people that were directly going after the defendant. Did you see anything like that? Other than Mr. Rosenbaum?
It seemed to me that they were turning their attention towards him, and that they were shouting at him. I wouldn't say that they were like I said, it wasn't like a chase. It was like a turning and kind of directing their attention, and it wasn't, you know, a running at him, more of like turning their bodies towards him, and like those individuals in the bottom right of the screen seemed to be gravitating towards where he was.
But they were already headed in that direction anyway.
Yeah, that's unclear to me where they were. Like I said, I ran up and it was dark, so and I was on the phone, so I just heard the yelling and I saw attention. You know, my eyes went to Mr. Rittenhouse because of where other people were looking.
Would you agree with me that in the video we're watching, this infrared video, this aerial footage, there aren't any other figures that are moving towards the defendant at any point other than Mr. Rosenbaum?
If you rewind, I believe that I mean, it's possible that they're just walking in that direction, so it's not.
Let's go back to the beginning of the video, and again, if you can use Sister Marciana's pointer and point out anyone that you believe is moving towards the defendant other than Mr. Rosenbaum. Okay, let's can you come back to the microphone, please? Yeah, where the one we use for the jurors? Yeah, that might help. Why don't you bring that along with you when you go to the screen? And let's back up the video to the beginning again. And then you can feel free to speak into that microphone and tell us what you're seeing.
Hello? Yeah. So when I said that, I was referring to this group right here in the street, and they were shouting.
Okay. And my last question to you, Mr. McGinnis, was, would you agree with me that on this video, none of those figures actually physically move towards the defendant? Would you agree with me on that?
They're moving in the direction of the defendant, but like I said, it's not clear whether they were already moving in that direction prior to my arrival. Yeah, and like I said, that it was their attention and their screaming was directed in his direction, so that's where my eyes went.
The defendant actually, and you both run up behind these people. You approach them from behind as they're walking forward.
Correct.
To your knowledge, did any of those folks look back at you as you were approaching from behind?
To me specifically?
Yeah.
Not that I can recall, no.
And in that lot, that car source lot, at this particular moment, there are some folks in the lot, certainly on the far corner of the lot there, where some parked cars are parked on the left side of the building. We all know now, with the benefit of hindsight, there's a large crowd there who are bashing the crap out of those cars. Windows, the doors, everything. We know that with hindsight. Let me ask you this. When you were there that night, as this all is unfolding, again, try and put yourself back in that night without the benefit of hindsight, were you aware that there was a group of folks over there that were smashing out car windows or doing anything along those lines?
When I was on the phone with Shelby, she mentioned that something was going on up the street, but she said like she heard, I believe she said something along the lines of like there's like windows are breaking, and I assume that was probably from the car windows being smashed. But other than that, no.
All right. You indicated that the defendant, when he was running away from Mr. Rosenbaum, I think the words used was he entered a bit of a dead end as he was running by those cars and the building. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, on the video here, the person of interest number 2 with the square around him is the defendant. And person of interest number 1 with the circle around him is Mr. Rosenbaum. Can we please continue the video forward? Pause it right there, please. Where did our video go? Okay. I just want to be really clear on this, Mr. McGinnis. Other than Mr. Rosenbaum, did you see anyone else chasing the defendant?
The word chase, I wouldn't use that word to describe anybody else's actions.
Did you see anyone pursuing him physically in any way other than Mr. Rosenbaum?
Like I said, it's not clear to me whether those other individuals were, already heading in that direction. As for like, once Mr. Rittenhouse started to run, I didn't see anybody else running after him.
So, Mr. Rosenbaum is running after the defendant. Other than that, no one else is coordinating with Mr. Rosenbaum or helping to corral the defendant or, pen him in or anything along those lines that you saw. Would you agree with me on that?
Beyond the screaming and the yelling and, maybe walking in his direction, no.
The video here shows the defendant, person of interest number 2, and he is about to run. Let's continue the video to the end, please. Okay, let's stop for a second. Can we go back about 10 seconds? A little bit more. Keep going back, please. Oh, I'm sorry, that's all the way to the beginning. Let's play it forward. I'll tell you where to pause. Pause. This video indicates the person of interest number 2, the defendant, running. Would you agree with me? He's going to wind up running into the center of those 4 parked cars, 2 towards the top, 2 towards the bottom, and that's where the shooting occurs?
Correct.
Okay. Now, it appears to me on this video that if you run through those, there's a huge amount of open space on the left bottom of that parking lot, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, like I said earlier, that's why I said a bit of a dead end, because if somebody wanted to pass through that area, it wasn't like the cars were snugged up and next to each other and you'd have to like jump over them to get out. Like they were, parked closely, but there was enough space to pass through if you wanted to.
Okay. Now, the area where this all occurs, would you agree with me, is a very well-lit area?
Yes. You mean this all? You mean the final chase?
In the parking lot there where the shooting occurs.
Yes.
There are 3 large lights up on top of the Car Source building that are blasting that parking lot with light. Would you agree with me on
It's
that?
certainly a well-lit, yes, it was a lit parking lot. Like I said, the street just off there was very dark, but that area, there were large overhead lights.
You have described your impressions of what Mr. Rosenbaum was meaning to do or intending to do in his final physical acts towards the defendant. Would you agree with me that you've given us your impressions of that?
Yes,
At any point, did you hear Mr. Rosenbaum say anything about the defendant's gun?
I did not know.
He never said, I want your gun, I'm going to take your gun, give me your gun, I'm going to steal your gun, anything along those lines.
I didn't hear anything like that, no.
And you've already established that after the shooting, Mr. Rosenbaum never says a word, correct?
Correct.
You don't know, as you sit here today, what Mr. Rosenbaum was thinking, do you?
You mean at the time of the shooting?
Yes. Or at any point in his life. I mean, you have no idea what Mr. Rosenbaum was ever thinking at any point in his life. You have never been inside his head. You never met him before. You don't know.
I've never exchanged words with him, if that's what your question is.
So your interpretation of what he was trying to do or what he was intending to do or anything along those lines is complete guesswork, isn't it?
Well, he said, fuck you, and then he reached for the weapon.
Let's talk about that. At that very moment, you've testified, the defendant has turned around facing Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
The defendant has the gun in his hand.
Correct.
Mr. Rosenbaum is advancing and is pretty close.
Yes.
Correct? You believe, you've testified, that Mr. Rosenbaum is reaching for the barrel of the defendant's gun. Is that right?
Yes.
There are many possible reasons why an individual in that position would be reaching for a gun that's pointed in their direction. Would you agree with me on that?
Well, to clarify, the weapon was at a 45-degree angle, approximately. I don't know what you're asking. If you're asking if there's a reason why he would grab it.
You've already given us what you think is the reason. I'm suggesting there are other
When did I say that I gave a reason? I just said that what he was trying to do. I didn't give any reason on why he would. I have no clue. I will say that as many times as you want me to, but I have no clue why he was doing what he did. But I saw him go for the front portion of the weapon, and it was clear to me that that's what he was trying to do.
When you say the front portion, you're talking about the end of the barrel where the bullet comes out.
It'd actually be more like the shroud.
So the what?
Well, it wasn't like he was grabbing for the very, very tip of the gun. It was like he was grabbing for the front portion of it. So like his hand, where he missed, was like, I guess 6 inches up the weapon.
Still on the barrel.
Yes. So yeah, sure.
You indicated that that Mr. Rosenbaum, I think you used the terms, he was in a low position running. Do you remember saying something to that effect?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how tall Mr. Rosenbaum was?
Is not very tall.
Shorter than the defendant.
Correct.
Shorter than you.
Correct.
And you said that when Mr. Rosenbaum was reaching for the defendant's gun, the defendant, you've given us a physical gesture, and if I'm doing it correctly, and again, I'm going to ask you if I'm doing it correctly, it's like he's got the gun in his hands, the barrel is pointed to the defendant's left, he sort of moves it around almost up and over the outstretched hands of Mr. Rosenbaum. Would that be fair to say?
So that
You say to the left?
To the
The
defendant's...
defendant's left?
Yes.
it was aimed at a 45-degree angle towards the ground. I wouldn't say it was aimed to the left. It was aimed kind of, if you were to draw a line, it was aimed towards Mr. Rosenbaum, but at the ground.
Okay.
And then it was when he lunged that the weapon went to his left.
And again, with the pronouns, I just want to clarify, when Mr. Rosenbaum lunged, I'm using
Yes,
the proper
yes.
names, when Mr. Rosenbaum lunged, Mr. Rittenhouse moved the gun.
Move the gun to Mr. Rittenhouse's left
Okay.
and to my right.
And by doing so, I know you've testified you're not sure whether or not Mr. Rosenbaum actually touched the gun. Fair enough?
Correct, yes.
But at any rate, by doing so, Mr. Rittenhouse was finally able to get that gun in a position where there wasn't any more risk of Mr. Rosenbaum grabbing it by doing that little maneuver. Correct?
So at the point at which he dodged around, it was like they were extremely close, and so it's not clear to me what would have happened if those shots hadn't have been fired.
Final question. You talked at the end of your testimony about your feelings as you were accompanying the defendant and Ryan Balch. And you talked about still feeling a sense of your safety being in jeopardy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me your primary concern was the guns. That's what the thing that was making you feel the most unsafe that night, was the presence of these guns. Would that be accurate?
Well, prior in the evening and in the night prior, there were like some people who tried to take my phone from me, and then there were the other individuals with the bricks. So I would say that, it's a baseline level of fear associated with all of those things, but the guns, the presence of the weapons certainly elevated my understanding of the risk of the situation.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
Okay, you may step down, sir. Let's take a break, folks, and I'm going to ask that you return at 10 after. Please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen on any count of the trial.
What's up, guys? All right. So they're taking a break. Looks like we got I don't know, nothing else to do but to sit here and for 10 minutes. I mean, so what do you guys think? What do you guys think so far? Hold on, let's see. Let me go to this one. No, that's not what I want to do. So I guess I gotta move that. Forget it. We'll go back to the other one. We'll go to this one. I can just add a little picture of me here in the corner, so you guys can see who's talking. You guys can see my ugly mug. There we go. Let me move this somewhere down here. Let's switch it up a little bit. Go like that. There we go. There you go. So what do you guys think? I mean, I think this is just a waste of everybody's time, to be honest with you. I mean, come on, man. Are you seriously telling me? I mean, so they're asking a question. Should jurors be allowed potty breaks? That's the stupidest Long Crime Network. Should jurors be allowed potty breaks? That's the stupidest questions ever. Oh my gosh. You think the whole crap show is messed up? He was defending himself. Exactly, right? I mean, he's saying, this guy, the witness right here is saying, oh my gosh, look. The guy was going for Rosenbaum or Rosenthal. I thought it was Rosenthal, but I guess it's Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum was going for the gun. A few minutes ago, he was like, fuck you, shoot me with the N-word. What are you going to do? Right? Yeah, right, Smack Daddy? Look at this. Smack Daddy says, what happens if a crazy suicidal pedo gets an AR with 30 rounds in his possession that night? Gee, I wonder what would have happened. He would have shot a lot of cops, I bet. And he just got out of the mental hospital, right? And I mean, why did he get out of the mental hospital? What was he in there for? Why did they let him out? I mean, come on, right? Yeah, I mean, And he was a 5-time pedo. What's this guy's name? You know what? Let's go. While we're waiting, let's go here. Let's look this dude's name up. So they're saying Rosenbaum. Let's look up his real name, so I know his full name, and let's look the dude up. Joseph D. Rosenbaum, 36. Okay. See, as an investigative journalist, I pay for this website so I can look up people and shit. Let's see. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go here just for a second, guys. I'm gonna switch you over to a different screen because I forgot. I can't be showing you guys all the information I have on there. I'm just gonna have you guys looking at me. How about that? Okay, so let's look up Joseph Rosenthal. Joseph Joseph Rosenbaum. He's third. I don't know what city. Wisconsin. Who's texting me? All right, 36. They said he's 36, right? Oh, sorry, I forgot you guys can hear that stuff, huh? Joseph A. Rosenbaum. Was that what they're saying his name was? All right, I can put you guys back on the screen now. Right here. Here we go. I can put you back on the screen. What did they say he was? Was it Joseph A. Rosenbaum? Joseph D. Rosenbaum. Okay. Joseph D. Rosenbaum. Here we go. 36 from Ohio. What the hell is he even doing? What the hell is he even doing in there? Right? If he's from Ohio. Oh, that doesn't look like him. That's a different looking dude. Never mind. That's not the same guy. 34, Joseph C. Rosenbaum, Indiana. I typed in Wisconsin. Why are they not showing the one in Wisconsin? 34, could that have been him? No. 36, Aaron Joseph, no. Dennis Joseph Rosenbaum. Stephen Joseph. I don't have a report on him. This is the only one, and that's from Ohio. Let's see. I guess I don't have any results on him. What the heck? Maybe because he's dead. Maybe he's not in there anymore. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know. F it. F it. Yeah, I'll paint. He was convicted, but I want to see how many time. Oh, thank you, 3D Patriot. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I didn't just dox my. You know what? Nobody knows where I am anymore. I'm moved. I got a trailer now. They probably removed it from the internet so to hide his raping of kids. Maybe like oh my gosh, Chad Loader. You know that Chad Loader guy? You know the guy that's all over the internet trying to dox people and stuff like that. I tried looking him up, and I can't find his information either. But I wonder if I bought the cheaper software. Maybe I have to buy more expensive software or something like that. But who knows? I mean, those guys are computer geeks. They can probably take their shit off. But this Rosenbaum guy is a freaking pedo. He's had anal sex, and excuse my language, but that's what it says on his file. He had sex with I guess the right word, sodomy with kids under 11 years old. Oh man, that's disgusting. I mean, right? Yeah, every time I hear Kurt Loder, I think of MTV, right? You got banned. Oh, right on. I just got banned from Facebook for being because of that HBO. You know, if for those of you that are new, I was on HBO the other day, and the HBO special that I was on said that I was a Proud Boy, which I used to be a Proud Boy, and because of that, so Facebook said that now I support white supremacists and white supremacist group because I'm a Proud Boy, and I was kicked off of Facebook for life. I've gone and I've tried using different emails, and the minute you put in EddieBlock, Facebook will not. So I don't know. Maybe you guys can try starting a Facebook account with EddieBlock. If it works, let me know and let me have it so I can go use it. But yeah. Oh wait, you know what? Dawn wants me to show. Dawn loves my video from my FAFO video. This is from yesterday. I was trying to catch up yesterday. Here, you guys want to see it? Dawn wants me to share it because Dawn likes watching this video. So I was in Portland a couple months ago. I had the best footage, and unfortunately, Portland took it, or Facebook or YouTube took it down because they said that I showed weapons in there, and they were paintball guns, right? So I didn't really show weapons. Let me start from the beginning. And then my friend, Mr. Nice Guy, you still in here, Mr. Nice Guy? This is one of his songs. So here, I'm going to show you guys this video. This is a video I edited, but it's all my footage because I was right there.
We're willing to take the heat. You fucked around and you found out today, baby. That's our message to you.
Hey, what's up, guys? You know you like my videos. Hit that like and subscribe button down there. Maybe that's what I should do, Janet.
I know days from now, I might be arrested. But I'll tell you this. I'm sick and tired. And if we have to die to defend ourselves, our families, and our fucking freedom in America, we're gonna do it. We're gonna lay our lives down for what is right, for what is true. Proud boys and patriots will be out here if the cops won't do it.
Right, Colorado?
We are. Hey, we're willing to take the heat. You fucked around and you found out today, baby. That's our message.
So if you notice, I blurred out the faces of all the Proud Boys, except for Tiny, because Tiny doesn't care.
This shit. And if we
I
have
also
to fight
had to blur out
the
paintballs, guns, which you'll see. So this is my boy's song. Check him out, Mr. Nice Guy Alexander. This is his music. He is a Proud Boy. He does all my songs for me. So that was me right there. This is all for my camera.
Nowadays, everybody got some problems. Seems like the whole world has stopped revolving. Look, nice guy here, I'm a problem solver. Come sit next to me, we can chat it all up. But if you got some personal issues because you're triggered, and so far left, you're digging it gets bigger. Well, keep on digging and bring the rest of them with you. Because I'm getting sicker, all of you hypocritical. It's FAFO, and go down and find out. No, this ain't no check, I'll catch a different time now. Get you with a left and the right, hook lights out. Should've stayed inside and kept.
This is what really happens. The news won't show you this shit though, folks.
Screaming, burn that bacon, I hate you, then you cry now. I won't cover my mouth, that just come to my house. Take some pictures with a power and his doctors lying down. You're in my house now, and no Biden is a clown. 100% of the reason.
You can download the song on iTunes. Look up Mr. Nice Guy Alexander.
Knock them all up for treason, put Trump back in the house. You got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Check out that hook, yo. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. What? Stand back, stand by, but be ready. Because the problems are getting heavy, it's getting messy. The Lord is watching, the end is coming, the temple's building, that building's burning, he's persecuted, the kids ain't learning. We cover their faces in places with no trace of contamination.
Look at the guy trying to swing his little axe type thing.
We're out just waiting for Fauci patience, solving all the problems with a shot with Satan. There's no debating what this crisis was created by the same evil people that want to take our nation. The Lord is our Savior. Do yourself a favor. Help a stranger out and don't forget to love thy neighbor.
It's in Portland every weekend. You just gotta go.
Antifa and BLM, you are all in danger. A whole nother species. They give me heebie-jeebies. A gang sheets, getting sheep to chop off their peep. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook.
You know, that's what they do. They run up, they spray, and then they run like a bitch. Like, look, this guy's running for me.
If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook.
Almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing. What are you saying? I'm willing to do anything I want to see. Let's do it, sir. Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a white supremacist and right like me to get that white supremacist and right supremacist. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left behind. This is a left-wing. Antifa's an idea.
Look, this tow truck almost hits me right there, too.
If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey,
Well, I've been running over toes for a while.
got a problem, yo, I'll solve it. Hey, check out that hook.
Stand back and stand by.
There you go. There you go. Actually, you know what? Hold on. And then, if you guys didn't know, I was, for those of you that are new, since we got some new people here, I was the last man standing on the Capitol on January 6th. And if you don't believe me, here's the fucking video.
Today, we're gonna help you get down.
All right. So this is the Capitol. This is January 6th. Look, Jan streamed live on January 6th.
They don't have an elevator around the Capitol?
How did you get up here?
About 5 guys carried me up.
Okay, I mean, there's no...
And this is where they actually fucking dropped me off the Capitol. Fucking cop.
I stayed behind. They didn't leave me behind. Your guys are the ones that maced me like 3 or 4 times. Or whatever the hell that shit was.
So look, I'm on a scooter, I'm disabled. These guys are making me walk down the fucking steps. I know it's only like 4 steps, but still.
Nothing I can do? Nothing I can do for you?
No, I got it.
Oh shit.
See, look, I just fell right there.
All right.
We're gonna get you guys, push everybody out off the plane. We're gonna use the officers and car squad.
Okay. Yeah. It's not shit. It's my scooter.
Listen, man. I got shit thrown at me today.
Yeah, I've been maced and or whatever the fuck you guys are spraying me too. So. Well, yeah, you guys don't fuck with Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Everybody in this is like, Eddie, don't talk to the cops like that.
That doesn't have to give me an attitude, you know. It's been a long day for me too.
You didn't have to come up here.
Yeah, I did.
Right there. This is right over there.
I did have to come up here because I'm an American. You're not acting like it right now.
He's all sorry. I'm like, you ain't acting like it right now. Oh, I thought I was going to jail right here, right now, though. And they just let me go.
You guys seeing all this stuff?
Dude, and that was a rental scooter. I'm glad fucking nothing happened to that shit. I don't think I bought the
Yes,
insurance.
sir. See, now that guy that just walked by was cool.
So I'm rolling my scooter down. I'm like rolling. I'm like, where the fuck are they taking me? Where am I going? I didn't know what the hell was going on right now. I'm like, I think I'm getting arrested. Right?
You guys are watching this live.
And like the dude's walking me out, but he's not even watching me. So they know I'm not a threat, right? That cop right in front of me is the one walking me out. So I'm just following him.
Anyways, how's everybody doing tonight?
Right on out of the camp. Yeah, this was awesome, bro. Like, if you guys are new, any video you seen from the Capitol, most likely you seen my videos.
What's up, everybody? I'm alright. They're just escorting me down
Karen,
somewhere.
they stole everything from me. They took every electronic device I had
Yeah,
in my
they
house.
dropped me a little bit. It's alright.
The FBI raided my house and took everything. But they really don't know. I'm really strong and I can handle my own.
So did you guys see when they let me fall down the steps?
Oh, dude, they took my cable box. It's like, why are you guys taking my cable box? They took battery packs. You know, the
I
battery
think that
packs.
might be a little bit of a lawsuit, isn't it?
So that cop now stopped walking me down, right? So I was like, right now I'm like, I guess I'm free. Oh, HBO paid me for my footage.
That?
Most of the people that stole it didn't pay for it.
Jeez, I might own the state or the national capital pretty soon on.
Here, I'll go to the front just so you guys can see. I was there.
The cops just stormed and took everybody off, but I'm still up here.
So I mean, you see all the
They're
cops
trying to
right
figure
here?
out, I think, how to get me down. Eddie Block is the last man standing. Last man standing. And now I'm getting blocked.
So this is January 6th, guys. This is about 6:30 at night.
Yeah, I'm the last man standing, guys. What's up, guys? Just surrounded by officers up here.
Right, Don? I was lucky to get service. There was no service the whole day, and all of a sudden I had service right then, so I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to go live. Dude, that trial should have been back already.
None of you guys are gonna see this. I am still up here at the Capitol. The cops have, they maced me a couple times. Well, not me personally, but they shot it down here and tear gas or whatever it was.
Dude, somewhere there's a video or the photo. I don't know where it is. I gotta find it again. But somebody took a picture of me up there, right? And you see the tear gas landing right next to my scooter and going off. I gotta find that photo.
And they just got everybody to leave. But there's no way to get my scooter down, so I'm gonna wait until. I guess some officers are gonna carry me down. They said something like that.
Oh, they did. I remember I had to take an Uber home because I couldn't make it home.
I've been patted down for weapons, and since I don't have any weapons, they let me stay up here. So this is a view nobody else is getting right now.
That was a crazy,
I am up here,
crazy day.
Freezing my butt off, in fact.
Actually, I was kind of a little shaking too because I'm like, great, I'm going to fucking
and
jail.
We've been maced, tear gassed. My eyes are burning, but I'm still up here.
That was the one day I was glad that masks were around.
I'm holding the ground still.
It's funny, people are already talking about Viking Men. That's how fast this shit was getting out.
I don't know who Viking Man is, guys, but
what's up, Julius?
Freezing. I'm gonna put my glove back on. Maybe that'll help.
We're just waiting for court to start back up. I was just showing people what it was like at the Capitol on January 6th. Let's go check this court out. Let's see what the hell they're doing. They're still on break. They are still on break. They said they're going to be back at 5 minutes after, and it's 17 minutes after already. What the hell? How long is it? Well, you got to remember, the judge is like old. Is Kyle Rittenhouse guilty or not guilty? He is not guilty. It's self-defense. 79% of the people say that in here. 21% of the people say he is guilty. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they have these signal blockers. Like, I remember when President Trump drove by, like I was filming live, and then the signal died. When on December 12th when we were there, something like that, President Trump flew by on the helicopter, and all signals went down. They have signal jammers, big time. You're having heart problems watching this all over again. Oh, sorry, double. Sorry. Those 21% are terrorists, right? Let's see. I don't know. Can we troll some of these trolls? Are they saying anything good worth trolling? Let's see. The state is keeping Kyle. The state said in keeping Kyle was first fact. This guy can't type. You gotta idolize the kid. I mean, he is 17 years old, and he was handled his weapon so well, right? I mean, come on. What a bunch of bullshit. Oh, and you know what? Here, since people were asking about or mentioned my 360 camera, I had this 360 camera where I can show you guys shit. And so when you watch it, let's see. When you watch it, you can spin shit around. Alright, so this is in DC. So, like, if you watch my video, if say you watch this video, this is me. Right? There's me right there down below.
What do you want to say, man? I'm going to tell you right now that Supreme Court Justice Roberts has a skirt on. He really is a...
This guy, even though he's a little fat, he did a really good President Trump. But so see this camera, you can turn 360 degrees all the way around. You can even look at the ceiling. So I do this whenever I go out in public. I always have this camera on me for protection, you know. Let's see. So I mean,
what are you ladies doing here today?
so my mic is on the other camera. Dude, I love watching myself. I'm a narcissist. What do you expect? I can't help it. Actually, I really don't watch my videos that much. There's my boy Rufio right there.
I beg your pardon?
Hey, there's another scooter there.
I did not.
And this was Miss oh my gosh, I forget her name. Miss Ray. Isn't it Miss Ray? From Florida. Is that Miss Ray? Me and her were hanging out. She's cool as hell. Miss Ray. Is that her name, Miss Ray? I think it's Miss Ray. Alright, they're finally back. Now I can start talking. I'm gonna turn my mic down, guys. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll talk shit while they're talking. Now I just let them go. Is her name Miss Ray though, guys? From Florida? Isn't that her name? Oh, that's definitely why the FBI hasn't given it back. They love that view. But I bought a new one, so I got another one now. And what's wrong with liking watching yourself? I mean, come on. Who doesn't like this? Well, okay, I'm a narcissist. Big deal. I'm a fat, crippled narcissist. Leave me alone. What's up, nigga work? Oh, I think the judge is based as hell too. I mean, I think he's gonna help. But see, he doesn't make the decision. The jury makes the decision. So who cares?
Right.
I mean, right? Like he doesn't even close his freaking thing all the way. He's like, I don't need to close it. At least we know he's not naked underneath there. Dig a warp. Dig a warp's my side cripple. She's crippled too.
You got everybody. I don't know.
We have 19.
Oh, I've only got 18 here. Yeah.
Let's go, Brandon.
Okay, there we go. All right. You may proceed, Mr. Binger.
All right, I'll turn my mic down,
Calls
guys.
Ryan Balch.
I need some Crown Royal.
You agree? All right.
Who is that younger? Is that like his sisters or something in the back? Oh, I gotta take my picture off of here too, huh?
I do.
You don't want to see me the whole time, because I'm gonna clean up my house.
you make sure you pull that microphone close to your mouth?
Just
and,
don't breathe in it.
Spell your last name for the
Mouth
record.
breather.
Ryan Balch, Balch.
Where do you live currently? What city or town?
Jackson, Wisconsin.
Back in August of 2020, where was that where you lived at that time as well?
That is correct.
And how are you currently employed?
I am employed doing manufacturing work.
Now, was there a time in your past where you served in the United States military?
That is correct.
Can you tell us about that, please?
From 2008 to 2013, served the United States Army as an infantryman. One tour to Iraq, one tour to Afghanistan.
And I want to turn your attention to the night of August 25th, 2020. Did you come down to Kenosha that evening?
I did.
Why?
We had been watching it on the news. Some of the people I knew within the protest group had said that things were rough down there. Somebody made mention of a Facebook post. I didn't really pay attention to that one too much. But in general, we just decided to come down and help out.
When you say we, who are you referring to?
The four people that accompanied me.
What are their names?
Jason Lekowski, Dustin Collette, and there was a female, I didn't know her name.
Prior to that particular night, did you know Dustin Collette and Jason Lekowski?
I had known Jason for about 4 to 5 years, knew Dustin about 3 weeks.
Where you lived in Jackson at the time, where did those other individuals live?
Jason lived in Brown Deer, and Colette lived in West Bend.
Now, you indicated that you'd heard from some protesters that things were rough in Kenosha?
Correct.
When did you hear that?
During the first night of the protests and the riots.
Just so we're clear about when you say the first night.
August 24th.
Okay.
Would have been.
The situation kind of began with the shooting of Jacob Blake on Sunday night, August 23rd.
Correct.
There were incidents that night. Monday night, August 24th. There were incidents that night. And of course, Tuesday night, August 25th is the night that we're going to be talking about. Do you remember which of the first two nights it was that you first heard about things? Was it Sunday or Monday?
Anybody I had contact with wasn't down there for the 23rd. So everything I heard about was on the 24th.
Were you personally down here on the 23rd or 24th?
No.
The first time you came down was on Tuesday?
Yes.
And when you traveled down here, you mentioned there were 3 other folks with you, a female, and then Mr. Lekowski and Mr. Collette. Who all traveled together?
I have to backtrack on that a little bit. Me and Colette rode together, and the female rode with, I forget the other guy's name that she rode with.
Jason Lekowski?
No, Jason Lekowski came in later in the evening.
I see. Okay. You have identified Dustin Collette and Jason Lekowski as people you already knew.
Yes.
There's a female you've mentioned. Was there anyone else coming down that you knew before this night?
Danton Mertz would be somebody that I knew as well.
And that's Danton Mertz?
Yes.
Okay. How long had you known him?
About the same amount of time I'd known Colette.
Just about 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know where he was from?
West Bend.
We'll talk in a minute about where you wound up coming to in Kenosha, but when you were thinking about coming down, when you were driving on down to Kenosha, what was your plan? Where were you going to go?
We really didn't have a set destination. There had been several places that we'd been told might need some help. But when we came in, most of those places were already occupied. So we ended up on Sheridan Road at 63rd and Sheridan.
Do you remember any of those other locations that you'd heard about?
They were car lots. I don't remember specifically the names.
Okay. Obviously now you're familiar with Car Source.
Correct.
Prior to coming down to Kenosha, had you ever heard of Car Source before?
I didn't know it existed.
Obviously you'd never shopped or worked there before.
No.
Okay. When was it that you first learned anything about Car Source?
When we arrived.
And when you say when you arrived, where exactly did you arrive at?
The Car Source location on 63rd and Sheridan.
Okay. There's a little pen in front of you, right in front of you, sir. And if you push the button near the end, there's a laser pointer. Can you, on that map behind you, can you identify that location for us? Okay. And that's the car source at the northwest corner of 63rd and Sheridan, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, you indicated you arrived there. You've identified some other folks that were coming down with you. Did they all come to that location too?
Everyone but Jason Lekowski.
And you mentioned he arrived later.
Right.
Okay. So in this initial group, you've identified Dustin Collette, Danton Mertz, an unknown female, and yourself. Is that right?
That is correct.
And all of you wound up starting at that car source.
That is correct.
Tell us what happened when you arrived there.
When we arrived, we encountered, there were 5 individuals on the car lot at the time. One guy was working for the hospital, and he was in full military issue gear. And there was Kyle and his friends there as well. I talked to the guy who worked for the hospital for a few minutes. Then we went over and talked to Kyle and his friends.
And when you say Kyle, you mean the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse.
That is correct.
Do you remember the names of his friends?
I remember Nathan and Dominic.
And what happened then?
We asked them what their plan was, what they were doing. They kind of explained that they worked for the car source facility. And then they described that there were 3 other locations. And then at that point, the owner to car source showed up.
Did you speak with that person?
I did not.
Do you know that person's name?
I have no idea.
What did you do next?
We kind of, at that point, several vans pulled up full of people. They got out. Most of them, there was one guy who was armed similar to the way we were. The rest were armed with bats, and one of them had like an axe. So melee type stuff. They were there to brawl. They came over and talked to us. The guy and Kit came and talked to me. They agreed to stay at the location in 63rd and Sheridan, and we were going to go to 59th and Sheridan.
I want to ask a couple of clarification questions. First of all, you said some of the folks were, I think you said dressed like you or equipped like you. I'm not sure how you phrased it, but can you tell us what you mean by that?
The one guy that I spoke to was wearing a plate carrier carrying an AR-15.
Sorry, wearing what?
I'm sorry. A plate carrier, body armor, and carrying an AR-15.
Did you have body armor on?
I did.
And you were carrying an AR-15?
This is correct.
This other person you talked to, were they ex-military like you? Do you remember?
They said that they had worked for Blackwater.
And that's a private security contractor?
Private security contractor.
Okay. You mentioned you said vans, I think, more than one?
Correct. There were 2 vehicles at least that showed up.
Do you know where those folks came from?
I didn't question them.
Had you ever seen or met any of those folks before?
No.
Other than the people you've described coming down with, Dustin Collette, Danton Mertz, the unknown female, and later on Jason Lekowski.
Right.
Other than those folks, the people you encountered on this particular evening, either at this location or elsewhere, had you met any of them before?
No.
Obviously, never met the defendant before?
No.
Had no idea who he was before that night?
Nope.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. You mentioned that one of the folks that came in the vans was similarly equipped as you, and then the rest had different types of, I think you characterized them as melee weapons. Would that be fair to say?
That would be fair to say.
Meaning not guns such as handguns or shotguns or AR-15s?
Correct.
And I believe you said that at some point there was an understanding that those folks that came in the vans would stay at 63rd Street Car Source, and some of you, including yourself, would go up to the 59th Street Car Source. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
What time of day was this when you were having this encounter at the 63rd Street Car Source?
It was approximately 7:30 p.m.
You were aware that the city of Kenosha had a curfew that night at 8 p.m., correct?
Correct.
You intended to stay past the curfew time. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
I know you mentioned earlier something about hearing about the prior night's events, things like that. Maybe I asked this, and you may have given me a little bit of an answer, but what were you actually intending to do physically? Like, what were you actually going to do when you got here to Kenosha?
The intent when we got down there was to stop the people from looting and rioting and whatnot. Most of the protesters that I talked to before coming down there were trying to control them throughout the night, and it just wasn't working. So we were there to be more of a deterrence than anything.
What were you going to do yourself, personally, to accomplish that goal?
Pretty much tell people to stop. Just be, throughout the night it kind of proved out that we didn't have to actually do anything to not have them do it, just us being there. It seemed to work, and that was kind of my intent the whole time, was to just be there, be seen, and to deter people from doing that.
You mentioned your AR-15 and your body armor that you were wearing. Beyond that, what sort of equipment did you bring along to assist you? Maybe not stuff you actually used, but things you brought along in preparation for this night.
Dustin Collette had brought some pepper spray grenades with him, and he kind of handed those out.
We've seen photographs of you and videos of you, which we'll get to in a little bit. It appears that you've got maybe a utility belt on or something like that. I don't know. Can you tell us in your own words what other things you had on your body in terms of equipment?
I had extra ammunition and extra medical equipment.
Any other types of weapons or self-defense equipment on you?
I had a Glock 17 handgun, ammunition for that, but as far as a less than lethal option, no.
You talked about your desire to serve as a deterrent to people. What was it about you or your actions that you thought would work as a deterrent?
Typically the people that were, and from what I'd been told by the protesters and stuff, they were selecting places that were unguarded, that there was nobody there, that they could just go in and do what they need, light it on fire, take whatever they wanted, and roll out after that. So figured just being there would be enough.
If just being there was enough, why did you bring along an AR-15, a handgun, and wear body armor?
Well, because those people could be armed too. If I'm going to get shot, I'd rather have body armor on, first and foremost.
Best answer ever,
and I
because they could be armed too.
Like to be able to defend myself from it as well.
So is it fair to say that coming down to Kenosha that night, you were prepared for the possibility that there would be gunfire?
That's correct.
You were prepared to use your gun to defend yourself?
That is correct.
Were you planning on using the gun to protect the property that you were guarding?
No.
So, for example, we know that you were at the 59th Street car source for a lot of the evening. If you had seen someone attempting to damage a vehicle, would you have used your gun and fired at that person to protect that property?
No.
At any point that evening, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I'm trying to get to a point here, did you go inside the 59th Street car source?
A couple of times, yes.
What was inside there?
Several cars that were being worked on, some tables, some chairs.
Was there a living quarters or an apartment or anything like that where someone was able to sleep or live?
Not that I saw, but I did see that it was attached to a gas station.
Do you know if the gas station was open and in business at that time?
When we walked by, it appeared to be in business.
But it's fair to say that no one was living here. This was all business property. Fair to say?
That is fair to say.
As opposed to a house or an apartment.
That is fair to say.
if there had been any sort of damage to the building, the CarSource building, such as being lit on fire or rocks thrown at it or anything like that, would that have caused an injury or a death to a person?
Had the fire spread to the residential buildings behind it, yes.
Okay. At any point in this evening, did anyone try and start a fire at that CarSource location?
Later on in the evening, they tried to start a dumpster on fire, and before that, they tried to light the church next door on fire.
And that's the church that's to the north across 59th Street?
Correct.
Okay. The dumpster that was attempted to be started on fire was actually located in the street when that event occurred. Is that right?
Correct. They pulled it off the parking lot area of CarSource and lit it on fire in the street.
So rather than try and light the fire where the dumpster is in the CarSource lot, they took it out in the road and then lit it on fire.
Correct.
And I believe that's where, at some point that evening, Dustin Collette goes out and puts the fire out.
That is correct.
Okay. I skipped around a little bit there. I want to go back to where we were. I believe you were describing how there was vans that met at 63rd. There was some sort of understanding that they would stay there, and you and others would go up to the 59th Street CarSource. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
What did you do after that?
I went across the street to the hospital where the other guy had gone. I met their guy they had watching the gate, and I didn't wholly trust the people who had agreed to stay down at 63rd. So I gave him my cell phone number and said, hey, if these guys leave or somebody starts breaking stuff, call us.
Did you ever get a call that night?
No.
What did you do after that?
We kind of gathered up. I think we took a picture, and then we went up to 59th.
When you say we went up to 59th, who all came along with you?
That would have been Dustin, the female, Danton Mertz, Kyle Rittenhouse, Dominic, and Nathan.
Other than the folks you just mentioned, did anyone else come along that you can recall?
Not that I can recall.
Is it fair to say that when you first got to the 59th Street location, the people you just mentioned was the group that was there protecting that property?
Yes.
I know Jason Lukowski comes later. Other than him, was anyone else there that night at 59th Street that may have arrived later to help with what you were doing?
Some family members from Kyle's friends showed up.
Do you remember who they were?
One of them was one of their fathers. There was somebody else that came through. They were there for 5-10 minutes and they left. I didn't know who that was.
Do you remember approximately what time it was when you got up to the 59th Street CarSource location?
We crossed 60th right as the sirens went off at 8 p.m. So we arrived at 59th around 8:01, 8:02.
Where did you position yourself at that point?
I stayed on the ground outside in the car lot area. Most of the cars were burned out at that point. And some of the guys went up on the roof, and some of us stayed down on the ground level.
Now, you mentioned earlier you met the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, that evening.
Correct.
And that was first at the 63rd Street CarSource, right?
Yes.
And then he came along up to the 59th Street CarSource.
Yes.
Did he ever tell you how old he was?
We asked the group when we first got there. They looked kind of young, and the general consensus was 19.
Not sure what you mean by general consensus. Is that something the defendant actually said?
It seemed like as a group they were saying it, and I didn't ask. I was just kind of off to the side when that conversation happened.
After everything happened on August 25th, you met with an FBI agent by the name of Tim Walther at your residence up in Jackson. Do you remember that?
I do.
And do you remember him talking to you about this particular night?
Yes.
And do you remember telling him, and I'm going to quote from your statement here, Rittenhouse told Balch that he was 19. However, Balch thought he was younger. Do you remember saying that to the agent?
I do.
Did the defendant say anything else to you about himself or his qualifications or anything like that?
Early on in the night, no.
Is it fair to say that as the night went on, while you were on the ground in front of the 59th Street car source, the defendant was also in that proximity area?
That is correct.
Were there times during the evening when you would chat with him about various things?
That is correct.
What was your impression of the defendant?
He seemed like a young and impressionable kid. I use that term kind of broadly there. Someone way younger than myself. He seemed to be really interested in what I'd done in life. When Jason Lekowski showed up, he seemed to be interested in what he had done in life. He'd explained some of the stuff he had been doing. The lifeguard, being a lifeguard, being EMT certified, stuff like that.
So the defendant told you that he was a certified EMT?
This is correct.
And that he was 19 years old?
This is correct.
Okay. What did you think about the defendant being there that night?
He had as much right as anybody else to be there.
Did it seem like he was properly equipped or prepared to be out there doing what he was doing that night?
He seemed a little under-equipped, and under-experienced as well, which is one of the reasons we kind of stayed with him.
When you say we stayed with him, who do you mean?
Danton merged us and Colette and the female.
Did you feel like you needed to keep an eye on the defendant?
He seemed like it. Yes and no. I felt like, as young as he looked, and the way he was, just the general way he was carrying himself, the protesters would have seen that as a weakness and tried to exploit that.
Is it fair to say that you took it upon yourself that evening to stay close to the defendant to ensure there were no problems?
We pretty much all picked one of the guys that we met at 63rd and kind of looked out for him, yes.
And you personally picked the defendant?
It's kind of more of a he picked me kind of thing.
At any rate, it turned out that you spent a lot of the evening close by the defendant. Fair enough?
That is fair.
Okay. One of the things that the defendant was asking you about was your military experience. Is that right?
This is correct.
What did you tell him about that?
I just told him about the various deployments and what I'd done while I was there.
Now, you mentioned earlier that when you arrived at the 59th Street car source, it was a little after 8 o'clock, a little after curfew. Can you describe for us what the scene was at that location at that time?
Most of the cars in the parking area had been burned out. The building itself had been boarded up pretty good. You could see some evidence on the side of the building where people had thrown things at it to try to start it on fire. But other than that, it typically looked like a war zone, is what I would say.
What about the street in front, Sheridan Road, in that area? Were there a lot of people around at that point?
At the time, it was mostly law enforcement and people similar to us milling around. We had an occasional group of protesters coming through.
Now, there are, on that particular evening, there are protests that were going on in Kenosha. Were you aware of that at the time?
Yes, we could see them up by the courthouse from that position.
Is it fair to say that when you first got to Car Source, most of the protesters and most of the protest was north of your location?
That is correct.
Closer to Civic Center Park, which is right out in front of the courthouse?
That is correct.
Okay. Did there come a time in which the crowd started to come down closer to the 59th Street car source?
Before the police started to push them towards us, there were some folks that came through. Most of them were carrying fire extinguishers and said they were putting out fires and whatnot.
You mentioned the police pushing them to you. Did there come a time when that happened?
Yes.
I've seen statements at various times where you have talked about hearing the police say something about what the plan was or what they were intending to do. Did you ever talk to any law enforcement officer that
Yes.
night? And did they tell you something about what the plan was?
Yeah, right before, I want to say around 9 p.m., me and Kyle were walking down to the Ultimate gas station, and we encountered a female deputy. And she told us, hey, we're getting ready to start pushing them down, you guys. Once that happens, it's kind of going to be on you guys. And she got in her patrol car and left.
Who was that person?
I didn't get a name.
So your understanding was that the police were going to move all these protesters into your area and give you the job of taking care of them?
She didn't insinuate that so much as it seemed like what was likely going to happen.
Do you know what the rank of this person was that you spoke to? Was this a captain, a lieutenant, a sergeant, anything like that?
I didn't see any rank.
Other than that, did you speak with any other law enforcement officers about this notion?
No.
Okay. And you said the defendant witnessed that?
That's correct.
And I believe you mentioned that was around 9 o'clock?
It would have been around 9 o'clock.
Had the police already pushed the protesters down your way at that point, or did that come later?
That came a little bit later. They started pushing them around 9:30, 10.
Okay. So I want to talk about the time period from when you first got to 59th at around 8 or so, and that time at 9:30 or 10 when the protesters start getting pushed down your way. So there's an hour and a half, maybe 2 hour period of time.
Okay.
During that time period, where were you located?
For the most part, 59th.
Was the defendant also there?
That is correct.
What were you doing?
Oh, we were just kind of standing around talking. A couple of times, some of the protesters came over and told us that, hey, some people are trying to set this building on fire, so we'd go over there, and when we'd show up, they'd run away. That's around the time that we were told they were trying to light the church on fire. And at that point, we were told it was a bald guy with a red shirt.
So let me stop you for a second. You indicated that there were times in which you received reports that someone was trying to start something on fire, and you said we would go over there. Who's we?
It was a mix each time.
Did the defendant ever go?
He went with us at least once when we went over to the Stella when they were trying to break the windows out over there.
Okay. So tell me what you remember about that.
So the same protesters that were carrying fire extinguishers before, they were from Kenosha. They had stopped and talked with us quite a bit. In fact, we'd helped them carry somebody from up at the protest back beyond the police so they could take them to the hospital. And the defendant helped with that as well. They came running down because there were, in their words, there were people trying to break into the Stella and light it on fire. Somebody had pointed a gun at them, and the cops weren't around. So we headed across the other car source facility, across the way into the burned out cars, and there were 3 to 4 subjects breaking out windows on the Stella and just milling around over there. And once we got to within 100 yards of them, I believe it was Colette, yelled out at them. They turned and saw us and they ran off.
You were one of the people, along with Dustin Collette, that went over there?
That's correct.
Who else went with you?
I want to say that Kyle was with us and one of the protesters who had told us about it.
So I understand no one wants windows broken out or fire started or anything like this, but what gave you the right to go around and police that area?
Well, there were members of the community that asked us to go help them.
Who?
These 4 protesters.
Well, those you characterized as folks walking with fire extinguishers. Were they from the Stella?
They came from that direction.
Were they employed by the Stella?
I didn't ask.
You Is it fair to say you heard a report that somebody was up to no good and you decided to head over there and stop it?
Correct.
Other than that, you don't know anything more about what was going on?
No.
And these people you saw milling about at the Stella, do you know who they were?
One was one of them was fairly tall. The rest of the people seemed to be about average height or shorter.
Beyond that description of their height, do you know anything else about them?
No, we didn't get that close.
Don't know where they came from?
Nope.
Don't know their names?
Nope.
Don't know where they went afterwards?
Nope.
Don't know what their affiliation, if any, was with the Stella? Right?
I would assume they weren't affiliated with the Stella.
I would assume somebody breaking the Stella's windows is probably not. I agree with that. But my point is you're making an assumption.
Correct.
With less than perfect information.
That is correct.
You mentioned a fire at the St. James. Was that at the St. James Church?
This church right here.
Now, can you just put your pointer back up right where you were doing? This is a satellite photograph of Kenosha that's a little older. There's a building that you're pointing at right now. On the night of August 25th, 2020, that building wasn't standing anymore, was it?
No.
There was a pile of
There
rubble?
was rubble right here, but there's another building right in there.
Okay. The church itself is actually on the other end of the north end of the block along 58th Street. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. When you mentioned something about a fire or somebody trying to start a fire at that location. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the same individuals that told us about the Stella showed up again, and they described a female, 2 males trying to light a fire at the church.
What did you do?
We kind of just walked around the street to kind of look around there. When we got there, we could see somebody on the front of the church. They saw us. They ran off.
Did you see anything more than that one person?
No.
Did you see what that person was doing?
No.
Did you see a fire?
No.
Did you put out a fire?
No.
We've talked about, and again, I started this with asking you about that 8 o'clock to 9:30 or 10 o'clock period of time, and you've described a couple of things, the Stella incident, the St. James incident. So beyond that, what other things were you doing in that period of time?
We were walking down to 63rd to check it out. At that point, we had figured out that the folks that said they were going to stay there no longer stayed there. So onesies and two at a time, people were going down there to check on it. Then they would go over to the Ultimate, check on the guys over there, see what they were doing, and then circle back and come back.
We've seen some photos and videos of the Ultimate gas station. Would it be fair to say that there were people protecting that location that were similar to your group, armed with long rifles, things like that?
That is correct.
And you mentioned that whatever these vans were with these folks with melee weapons at 63rd, at some point in the evening you found out they weren't there anymore?
That is correct.
I want to ask more specifically about that. Was that something that you personally found out or you heard from someone else?
I kind of just heard it through discussion that there was nobody down there anymore.
When you heard that, how many people were in your group guarding the 59th Street location at that point?
It would have been around 7 or 8.
And you said you would send groups of 2 people at a time to go down to 63rd?
That's correct.
Were you ever one of those folks?
Yes.
Was the defendant?
Yes.
What was going on when you went down there?
When we went down that way, there was nobody down there. A couple of the folks that had been down there initially had moved over to the Ultimate. That seemed to be where they had kind of ganged up, but the folks with the melee stuff had kind of gone.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm understanding you. You said a couple of the folks that were at the 63rd Street car source initially wound up going over to the Ultimate gas station?
That is correct.
Were those folks that came in those vans?
One of them came at the same time the vans did.
Okay. So one of the people that came at the same time as the vans did wound up at Ultimate Gas.
That is correct.
And it sounds like there may have been more than just one person from 63rd that wound up at Ultimate Gas?
There was one other guy that was with him when we showed up.
Okay. So, is it fair to say that, speaking for you personally, Mr. Balch, you felt like it was part of your responsibility to not only guard the 59th Street car source, but also the 63rd Street car source?
That is correct.
Which is why you were and other folks were going down there to check on it.
That's correct.
Okay. So I want to continue talking about that 8 o'clock to 9:30 or 10 o'clock period. We've talked about a few things. Other than that, what else were you doing during that period of time?
Mostly we were just kind of talking to people when they would walk by. We didn't really have any negative encounters during that period of time. You'd get the occasional person wanting to have a debate and whatnot, but most of it was just walking down to 63rd, somebody coming saying somebody's trying to light something on fire, go check it out, come back, wash, rinse, repeat.
Okay. So now you've mentioned there was a time when the police started to move the protesters in your direction, and I think you said earlier that was around 9:30 or 10 o'clock?
This is correct.
Okay. Tell us about that.
As soon as they started pushing the protesters, we started getting the less, I guess the people who weren't intending on participating in a riot, I should say, started kind of drifting down towards us. They were shouting insults at us, and some of the other members of the group were having back and forths with them. I spent the large majority of that time trying to calm people down and just keep them moving down the street. Then we started encountering people who were more and more aggressive, and the cops would push them, then they would back off, then they'd come back and push them again, and they would push them further south each time. That's south.
When you describe these interactions with the people walking past, was the defendant present for any of that?
He had one exchange that I saw.
Who was that with?
Just some random person in the crowd screamed, "Fuck you."
At the defendant?
Yes.
How did the defendant react to that?
He said, "I love you too, ma'am."
You mentioned earlier that there was some sort of report of someone in a red shirt with bald head who was reported to be involved in some sort of incident. I think I heard you mention that as well.
Yes.
We now know with the benefit of hindsight who Joseph Rosenbaum was, and we've seen photographs of him in a red shirt and a bald head. Let me start by asking, whatever report you heard regarding Mr. Rosenbaum at that particular time, did you ever see him at that time?
I had seen someone fitting the description, kind of milling in and out of the groups that were coming through. Every time he was around the groups, now that I know who Joseph Rosenbaum was and can confirm who he was and stuff, he was not organic with the protesters.
What do you mean by that?
They didn't seem comfortable with his presence or the people that were with him.
Who was with him?
He had a male and a female that were with him pretty much consistently throughout the night.
So you saw those folks together?
Yes.
Him and the male and the female. Did you ever see them speaking to one another?
The male and the female, yes, but as far as them talking to him directly, no.
So you never saw Mr. Rosenbaum talk to that male or female?
No.
And you never saw the male and female talk to Mr. Rosenbaum?
No.
But you saw them in proximity to one another, so you're making some sort of assumption that they had some sort of association. Is that fair to say?
I saw them in close proximity with each other several times, which led to that assumption.
Okay. Tell us about the first time that you observed Mr. Rosenbaum.
The first time he was just getting aggravated with someone in the crowd. And the protesters were trying to separate him from whoever that was. And he was shouting, fuck you kind of things to everyone. And they kind of walked off. And one of the things that stood out to me was the tall male that was with him had a handgun in his hand with the finger on the trigger pointed down to the ground.
Now you had an AR-15.
This is correct.
And you had your hand on the butt of that AR-15.
No.
at no point?
Hand on the grip with the fingers straight forward along the side of the receiver.
I misspoke when I said butt. I mean, the grip, the pistol grip of the AR-15, you had your hand on that with your finger not on the trigger, but within close proximity. Fair
That
to
is
say?
correct.
Okay. And this individual had a handgun
Right.
with his finger on the trigger.
This is correct.
And that caused you to be concerned of some sort of what?
Well, you're typically taught not to put your finger on the trigger unless you're ready to shoot. The way he was holding it, had anybody bumped into him or him tripped and fell, he would have been sending a round off into who knows what. So I just saw it as unsafe.
And potential for some sort of tragic accident.
Correct, or he was prepared for something.
Did you ever see him point that gun at anyone?
No.
Did you ever see him fire that gun?
No.
And obviously you had a gun that was bigger and more powerful than his. Fair to say?
This is fair to say.
And you're familiar with AR-15s?
This is correct.
How long had you owned your AR-15?
Since 2012.
So 8 years.
Yes.
And over that period of time, how many times had you fired your AR-15?
By August of 2020, I probably had somewhere close to 10 to 15,000 rounds through it.
And what type of ammo did it take? What caliber?
5.56.
And are you familiar with the term full metal jacket?
This is correct.
And is that the type of ammo you would use?
Yes.
And can you, as a military former infantryman in the Army who's fired 10 to 15,000 rounds, can you tell us a little bit about what full metal jacket bullets are?
FMJ, full metal jacket bullets are just a solid copper jacket around a lead core. There's nothing really particularly special about it. It's not particularly more dangerous than any other type of ammunition. In the state of Wisconsin, you're not allowed to hunt with full metal jacket ammunition.
Do you know why that is?
Penetration, over penetration.
What does that mean?
FMJ versus hollow points. Hollow points are designed to hit the target and expand and transfer the energy. A full metal jacket's not designed to do that. So depending on what it hits, it can just sail right on through.
So it's fair to say that a full metal jacket round fired from an AR-15 has the potential for hitting whatever it's shot at, say a deer, for example, and going through that and continuing on to something down the line.
It can.
As opposed to a hollow point, which typically hits a deer, for example, and then stops.
Yes.
And is it fair to say in your experience that a Glock handgun like you had that night is often loaded with hollow point ammunition, and a AR-15 is often loaded with full metal jacket ammunition?
It depends on what you're doing with it.
Is that what you typically would do?
I tend to run full metal jackets, yes.
In the AR-15?
In the AR-15.
What about in your Glock?
Hollow points.
And why is that?
My AR-15, I mostly use it for target and competition shooting. Glock is more for personal defense.
Loading a handgun like a Glock with hollow point ammunition is what you would consider to be the better choice for self-defense?
Yeah, for concealed carry, absolutely.
What about for open carry?
For open carry, it would be the same thing for a Glock handgun.
When you've fired your AR-15, 10 to 15,000 rounds of full metal jacket ammunition through there, what is the furthest distance of target that you've hit with that?
500 yards.
So it's a weapon that's capable of shooting a full metal jacket round and hitting a target 500 yards away.
Its maximum effective range is 550 yards. This is correct.
Now, we were talking about Mr. Rosenbaum and your observations of him, and I think you described something out in the street with some other protesters, or he yelled F you to them, something along those lines. What else did you see him do that night?
Every time I encountered Joseph Rosenbaum, he was hyper aggressive and acting out in a violent manner.
When we say violent manner, you saw him hitting, punching, kicking
He
people?
was always having to be restrained by someone.
Okay. And I understand that. Did you ever see him hit anyone?
The crowd was pretty good about getting in between him and whoever it was. If he landed a blow, I didn't see it, but he definitely wanted to.
Well, now, you have no idea, do you, what was going on in Mr. Rosenbaum's head?
No,
You'd never met him before that night?
no.
So let's just keep to your observations if we can. How tall are you?
5'9",
How tall was Mr. Rosenbaum?
5'4", 5'3".
So much shorter and smaller than you.
Yes.
Fair? Now, I know you want to talk about what you believe he was intending to do, but my question to you was, did you ever actually see him hit anyone?
No,
Did you ever actually see him kick anyone?
no,
Did you ever actually see him with a weapon in his hand?
no,
Did you ever actually see him cause any physical injury to anyone that night?
I saw him attempt to do it on a couple occasions, but I never saw him.
That was not my question, Mr. Balch. Did you ever... Excuse me?
It was my impression he was answering your question.
You'd agree with me?
Cross-examination.
Pardon me?
It's not cross-examination. He's supposed to ask open-ended questions. He was answering.
It was my impression that the witness had not completed his answer.
I apologize. I'll try to stop jumping in a little too soon, Mr. Balch. Did you ever see the defendant actually physically Mr. Rosenbaum, did you ever actually see Mr. Rosenbaum physically injure anyone that night?
No,
Did you personally have any interactions with Mr. Rosenbaum?
I got between him and Colette at one point, and then he threatened me and the defendant.
The time you described where you got in between him and Dustin Collette, between Mr. Rosenbaum and Dustin Collette, was the defendant present for that?
It immediately preceded him threatening me and Kyle Rittenhouse.
So was the defendant present for that?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Colette had stopped him from starting something on fire. There's a video of it, and Dustin Colette said something to the effect of "fuck around and find out," and I stepped in and told everybody, hey, chill out, calm down, stop doing that. I turned and had an exchange with one of the protesters, and I kind of explained to that protester, hey, I get what you're trying to do, but not this. And when I turned around, Rosenbaum was right there in front of my face, yelling and screaming. And I said, dude, back up, just chill. I don't know what your problem is. And he goes, you know what? If I catch any of you guys alone tonight, I'm going to fucking kill you.
And he said that to you?
Correct.
Did he say that to the defendant as well?
The defendant was there, so yes.
And as far as you could tell, the defendant was close enough to hear what Mr. Rosenbaum said?
That is correct.
Now, when this conversation occurred, were you wearing your AR-15 slung in front of your body?
That is correct.
Did Mr. Rosenbaum ever reach for it?
He didn't try.
Did he touch it?
No.
You had your Glock pistol on your hip, correct?
That is correct.
Did he ever reach for that?
No.
Did he ever touch that?
No.
Did he ever touch you?
No.
And at that point, could you see that Mr. Rosenbaum had no weapons of any kind?
He had a bag full of what looked to be chemicals to me in his hand, the guy with the Glock with a handgun behind him, and a female with a backpack. That was what I considered Rosenbaum having with him.
Okay. So a couple things. First of all, this bag, this plastic bag.
Yes.
Was it something that you could see inside?
It was a clear hospital type bag. It had containers, but I couldn't really tell what the containers were. I made the assumption at the time and told the FBI the same thing, that I thought it was for making Molotov cocktails.
And was that actually true?
I saw a similar bag later in the night that didn't contain those chemicals. So the assumption
Did not?
did not.
When you say you saw a similar bag in the night, what you mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, is after the defendant shot Mr. Rosenbaum. In that incident, Mr. Rosenbaum threw that same, we can see from the videos, he throws that same bag at the defendant, and it is left lying on the ground of the 63rd Street car source. You're aware of that from all the videos, correct?
Yes.
Did you go to that 63rd Street car source after the defendant killed Joseph Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Did you see that plastic bag laying on the ground?
Yes.
Did you look inside of it?
Yes.
Did it have any sort of Molotov cocktail?
No, it had some, like, bottles that would be for soap, but I'd seen plenty of people carrying those around during the protest, so I had no idea what was actually contained within them.
And when you say you've seen a lot of people carrying bottles of soap around?
Incognito bottles to carry things around in.
When you looked inside the bag that Joseph Rosenbaum was carrying, did you see any chemicals that could be used to start any sort of tear gas or explosion or fire or anything along those lines?
I didn't really so much as look into it as I kind of picked it up and just kind of tossed it back on the ground. But it didn't appear to be any sort of lighter fluid or anything like that in there.
Did you see anything in that bag that you would construe as harmful or dangerous?
No.
In fact, you felt safe enough to walk up to it, pick it up, and look at it. Fair?
That's fair.
So getting back to this incident where the defendant or that Mr. Rosenbaum is talking to you and the defendant, you mentioned that there's two people, a male and a female, that are close by. As we sit here today, do you now know who those folks were?
No, I don't.
Did that male and female that you're talking about, did they say anything to you?
No, the male always just had kind of a grin on his face the whole time. Like he was kind of enjoying all the violence and shenanigans that was going on.
Other than that, did he say anything to you?
No.
Did he say anything to the defendant?
I never saw him speak to the defendant.
Did you see the female speak to you at any point?
No.
Did you see her speak to the defendant?
No.
Did either one of them do anything threatening towards you?
No.
Did either one do anything threatening towards the defendant?
No.
You've described a series of events that occurred, and I'm trying to go back to the timing here, because I think you mentioned around 9:30 or 10 o'clock is when the police started pushing protesters by. And I think you said there were times when the protesters would come back and then be pushed back and forth. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Would you mind using that pointer, that laser pointer again, and point out the 59th Street car source, please? And just for the benefit of the jury, when you talk about the police moving the protesters out on the street, would you agree with me that the police are pushing people south on Sheridan from 58th to 59th and eventually down south to 60th?
That is correct.
And then you've described times when the police would pull back. Would they pull back north of 59th?
Yes.
So the protesters would be cleared from your area, but then allowed to come back in front of you and back and forth?
Yes.
Okay. When those movements would occur, I know you've described a little bit about the interactions with the folks on the street. In general, how would you say the attitude was of the people on the street towards you and your group?
Most of them seemed indifferent.
When you say most of them, were there others that didn't seem indifferent?
There were some that either seemed really angry about us being there, and then there were other people that seemed like they were kind of happy to just stand around and talk to us.
Do you remember there being issues with the laser pointers?
I do remember them calling out about people on the roof pointing laser pointers at them. And during that exchange with the person, somebody in the crowd actually pulls out a laser pointer and started doing the same thing. And at that point, to me, it was kind of null, because who's pointing the laser pointer.
Did you have any sort of laser sight on your gun that would illuminate a target?
No.
Do you know who it was up on the roof who was doing
I
anything
had
like that?
no idea who had that up there.
Do you recall speaking with a individual who was taking video for a news source or a media online source called the Rundown Live?
I remember him coming into the car source area, but it wasn't so much as a formal interview as he was just standing around talking to us.
Do you remember him speaking to you and the defendant when that dumpster fire occurred out in front of your location?
Yes.
Do you remember him speaking about staying on your property as opposed to going out in the street?
Yes.
That's something you heard?
Yes.
What did you think about that?
We had protesters coming on to car source. By this point, we're already going out and people were getting knocked down in the street. We were already going out in the street and dragging them out of the street, making sure they were okay. He seemed to want to keep us out of the street as much as possible. But by that point, there really was no declination between what was car source and what was the street.
Well, you knew where the property line was.
Yes.
But I understand you wanting to maybe go out and help people and things like that, but did you interpret that message, or did you think to yourself, we can stay here and protect this property, but it's not our job to go out there and police the neighborhood? Did that thought ever occur to you?
Not really, no.
Okay, so you felt like you were free to go out and confront people that you felt were doing things wrong?
No.
Help me understand that then.
It wasn't so much as I'm going to go out there and confront people because I can. It was if somebody from the crowd asked us to go help them, we would.
Okay, so
Only
if you're invited.
Right.
But you weren't going to just rush into a situation when you're uninvited and try and interfere.
That's correct.
Forgive me if I've already asked this, but I'm trying to keep the timing straight here. We've talked about your arrival at the 59th Street car source at around 8 p.m. When you first got there at that time, was there other folks that were supposed to be stationed at the 63rd Street car source?
No.
So when was it that you learned that the group that was supposed to be at 63rd Street
Your Honor,
had...
I'm going to object to this. This was all gone through 40 minutes ago.
How much longer do you expect this particular examination to last?
Of this witness in total?
Well,
Or about this particular issue?
Well, it's been a lengthy discussion, and I'm just wondering where we're getting.
If I could just finish this question, I'll jump forward. I'm sorry. I may have missed the answer earlier, and I apologize if I've already asked this. Do you remember when it was that you first learned that the folks that were supposed to be at 63rd weren't there anymore? What time of the day or evening?
It would have been about an hour after we actually got to the 59th Street.
So I think you said you first got there at 8, so
Yes.
maybe 9?
9.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned you had an interaction with Mr. Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Was that at the 59th Street location?
Yes.
After that, did you have any other interactions with him that night?
We encountered him hit and miss throughout the night, but he never approached us again that I saw, and he tried to engage us.
But you saw him around?
Yes.
Okay. What were your impressions of him when you saw him on those other times?
No, he was in the middle of them trying to light things on fire, smashing anything he could. In general, he was just being aggressive to the other guys down at the Ultimate. The protesters were getting pretty upset with him being around. They were very quick to let us know throughout the night, hey, that guy's not with us, that guy's not with us. Don't be mad at us. And hey, we get it. We already dealt with him before. and that was just the general vibe from him throughout the night.
So you mentioned that you saw him starting things on fire. When did you see that?
A couple more dumpsters. They tried to light a road sign on fire that he was a part of that. Just random little things.
Do you know if the defendant saw any of that?
It's possible. The defendant was close by when all this was going on.
When you say Mr. Rosenbaum was trying to start some other dumpsters on fire, where was that at?
Throughout the street, all up and down 59th.
Did he ever take any or was involved in any of the dumpsters at Ultimate Gas being started on fire, if you know?
I do believe, talking to people after the fact, that he was, but I couldn't confirm that myself.
Okay, and again, I'm not interested in what other people think or even what you've seen. That particular night, and I know it's hard to pretend you haven't seen any other videos in the last year, but I'm trying to focus in on what you actually remember that night, what you saw that night. Do you remember seeing Mr. Rosenbaum actually start any of those dumpsters on fire?
No.
Do you remember actually seeing him start that street sign on fire?
Yes.
Where was that at?
That would have been... The protesters had been pushed a little bit south of us at that point. There were road closed signs all through here, and they drug one off right about where I'm at. Right in there.
And so you're pointing to a location on Sheridan Road just north of 60th?
That's correct.
And when you say they took a sign, did you see Mr. Rosenbaum do that?
Yes.
And what happened then?
They tried to light it on fire. It wouldn't go, so they kicked it over.
When you say a road closed sign, can you describe what that looks like?
It was one of those big metal, the ones that they're portable that they can put in front of a road to stop it, to close it real quick. So about as wide as the witness stand is.
And again, you said they tried to start on a fire, but they couldn't.
Yep.
So they just knocked it over.
Yep.
Other than that, did you see Mr. Rosenbaum try and start any other fires?
Not after that, no.
I think you said he was trying to smash things?
Yes.
What did you see?
He was throwing rocks into the car source area. He was throwing rocks at buildings along the street. He was having a pretty good time.
Did you ever see him throw any sort of tear gas or gas container or anything along those lines?
I never saw him personally throw anything like that.
When you say he was throwing rocks into the car source location, do you mean the 59th Street car source
The
location?
59th Street and the gas station that's attached.
Did you see those rocks hit anyone?
No, I didn't see him hit anyone.
What action, if any, did you take after seeing the defendant throw rocks at your group? I'm sorry, Mr. Rosenbaum.
We didn't really take any action. By that point, the protesters were also pretty done with people doing that, so they were policing them as well.
Did you feel like Mr. Rosenbaum's act of throwing rocks at your group was a danger to your safety?
Yes.
Did you feel like you needed to defend yourself?
At that time, no.
Why not?
His aim wasn't very good, and he was pretty far away. He was pretty far away.
Sounds like he was trying, but not really succeeding.
Yeah.
Other than what we've just talked about, did you have any other sightings, conversations, encounters, or anything along those lines with Mr. Rosenbaum that night?
No.
Now, you said there was a time in which you, where the police had pushed the protesters down south of 60th Street. Is that right?
That is correct.
And I know you said that there was some back and forth. Did there come a time in which the line of police vehicles kind of finalized and stayed at 60th?
Yes.
When that happened, were you still at the 59th Street location?
That is correct.
After the police had pushed all the protesters south of 60th, was there any further risk of danger to the 59th Street car source location?
We were unaware of if or when the police were going to pull back again. So we did leave people there.
If the police hadn't pulled back, if they'd stayed at that 60th Street line and kept the protesters south of 60th, would there have been any further risk of danger to the 59th Street location?
This is speculation.
Sustained.
After the police pushed the protesters south of 60th, was there any damage done at all after that to the 59th Street location?
Not that I'm aware of.
Were there any protesters around even trying to cause any damage to that location?
No, most of the protesters that were still up at 59th with us were just standing around talking.
After the, okay, so the police, I understand you may not have known at the time, but it turned out that they established that line at 60th and pretty much kept it there. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Did you ever, once that happened, did you ever walk through that line heading south on Sheridan?
Yes.
Who was with you when you did that?
Jason Lekowski, Kyle Rittenhouse, and Dustin Collette was supposed to be with us.
When you say he was supposed to be, what happened?
Once we got across the line, I turned around and didn't see him.
Where did you go?
From there, I got mixed up in the crowd. I ran across the Ultimate, went inside there, and came back and started looking for the defendant.
Was this the time where the Daily Caller reporter Richie McGinnis was following you?
We had passed Mr. McGinnis before we crossed the police line south of 60th.
Okay. So you're aware of this video of Richie McGinnis interviewing the defendant, and then you and the defendant walking south on Sheridan through the police line with Mr. McGinnis with you. Is that
Correct.
right? Is that the time you're talking about?
Yes.
And you said there was someone else, Mr. Lekowski, with you?
Yes.
Is he? Do you know? Is he pictured in that video?
You see him following in behind us, I do believe.
Okay. Now, we watched that video earlier today.
Yes.
There is a time in which you encounter some folks with some fire extinguishers. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Once you passed 60th, and just so we're clear, you were walking on the west side of Sheridan Road.
Correct.
South of 60th. Richie McGinnis is there recording, correct?
Yes.
Tell us what you did after that point.
Once we got through 60th, we kind of paused on the north side of 60th. They were throwing rocks at the cops. And once they saw us there, they stopped throwing. They kind of shifted where they were throwing the rocks at the cops immediately right next to us to a little further down. We walked across, and once we entered the crowd, the defendant started asking people if they needed any first aid. I was doing the same. And walking through past there at an indeterminate time, I lost track of the defendant.
Had you discussed with the defendant what your plan was once you crossed that police line?
We were going to check and see if anybody needed any first aid, then go down to 63rd and make sure nobody was destroying it. And I'm not sure if the defendant was there when I said it, but me and Lekowski had agreed that if we got separated, we would go back to 59th.
Did you have any specific instructions for the defendant when you were heading out in that location?
Yeah, it was just stay close, don't get separated, and see if anybody's hurt.
You also told him to keep his mouth shut and not engage with people, correct?
I told several individuals at 59th Street that.
Including the defendant?
I believe I told him not to respond the way he was to certain people.
What do you mean the way he was?
That goes back to earlier in the night when he said, "I love you too, ma'am." That's when I told him, hey, don't say that. Don't even respond.
Why not?
Just because it can cause somebody to escalate the situation if they feel like you're making fun of them a little bit. So it just wasn't needed.
So the plan once you cross 60th is stay together, but if you get separated, go back.
Correct.
And try not to engage.
Correct.
And you said there came a time in which you lost track of the defendant.
This is correct.
How did that happen?
Got lost in the crowd. I had a female protester approach me and started to try to get into a pro-gun, anti-gun exchange. From there, I went inside to see if he'd went to the Ultimate to get any snacks. When I came back out, I encountered more individuals protecting the property. I talked to them. I assumed at the time he wasn't over there anymore, and I started to make my way back north to 59th.
Can we please play exhibit number 17? I'm going to need to turn on the TVs again.
So you guys are kind of like medics who are packing.
Yeah,
right?
basically. Well, he's an EMT, and
Gotcha.
I'm just kind of protecting his ass.
Oh, so you're a certified EMT?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And do you work as an EMT normally?
I'm a lifeguard normally. I got my ALS and I got my...
Gotcha.
And I'm former Army infantry, and I got a whole bunch of trauma training.
Well, thank you for your service.
We got you if you get needed.
I appreciate the service.
Oh, shit. Dude.
Stay away from that vehicle. Get out of the roadway. Thank you. There's a guy with a rock. Be careful, right behind that white fence. There are rocks in there, so be careful.
Hey! Friendly! Hey, medic coming through! Medical! Medic coming through! Medic coming through! Does anybody need medical? Anybody need medical? We're running triage over here. Anybody need medical? Hey, guys. Medical? Fire extinguishers are here to put out the fires. They know. Okay, good. They know. You just got shot up. You good? Yeah. It's all right. Where are you shot? I'm not shot. I'm just. You just said you got shot. No, I didn't.
I thought you got rubber bulleted.
Oh no, I just got rubber.
Pause the video right there. Did you see yourself in that video?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that you are a little bit ahead of Mr. Rittenhouse in this video, but then you start walking east across Sheridan Road.
Correct.
Okay. And in that direction is the Ultimate gas station.
Yes.
Do you remember where you went after that?
That's the point at which I went inside the gas station
Okay.
and then came back out.
I thought I heard you say that the purpose of going across the police lines was to see if people are hurt and to go check on the 63rd Street location.
That is correct.
Help me understand, how does going to the Ultimate gas station and going inside fit in with that?
Because there were other people at the Ultimate gas station.
I don't understand what that
To
means.
go over there to see if they're hurt too.
Oh, I see. So you went over there to see if those people needed help?
Yes.
Did you go inside the Ultimate gas station?
Yes.
And I think you said at one point you were going to get a snack for
Yeah.
yourself. Did you know at that point that you were leaving the defendant?
No.
What did you expect he was going to do at that point?
I thought he was following me.
How long was it before you realized he hadn't followed you?
By the time I got across the street.
What did you do then?
I continued on to the Ultimate gas station and talked to some of the guys there. Turned around, he wasn't around. Went back inside and went inside.
Inside the gas station?
Yes.
Why didn't you go looking for the defendant?
I assumed that he had went inside the gas station as well.
And then when you looked inside, did you see him?
No.
So where did you look for him then?
Back outside the gas station?
In the gas station lot?
Yes.
And this is a time in the evening when there are a lot of people in that lot.
This is correct.
Did you find him?
No.
So if he's not inside the gas station and he's not in the lot, did you go out around the area looking for him?
I walked on the outside of the crowd and tried to look for him, and then I decided to head north to 59th.
Why is that?
That's where I told Lukowski we should go.
Do you know where Jason Lukowski was at this point in the video that we just paused at?
He was behind Richard McGinnis in this.
And when you walked across Sheridan to the east, do you know where Mr. Lukowski went?
No idea.
When is the next time you saw Mr. Lukowski?
After the shootings happened.
So when you went back, when you left Ultimate Gas and headed back to 59th Street, did you see Mr. Lukowski at that point?
No.
Did he return to 59th Street while you were back there?
I never made it back to 59th Street.
Why is that?
The shooting started.
Okay, and we'll get to that in a moment. So your testimony is that as we're watching this video now, which has been taken by Richie McGinnis, and we see the defendant right there, that Jason Lukowski is somewhere close by.
He should be.
Okay. Can we continue to play the video, please? Let us know if you see Mr. Lukowski, okay?
No, it didn't even leave a welt. It just stung. It just fucking stung. I knew.
Little pepper boy never hurt nobody.
It was literally just like, oh.
It's a little spicy, that's all.
It was like, oh shit. That was really annoying.
Yeah, a little salsa.
Could you please not? Does anybody need medical? Does anybody need medical?
I think someone's got some medical weed, I'll tell you that.
Does anybody need medical? Medical! Does anybody need medical?
You were just the one to get off the car, trying to hook you up front. Now you trying to do medical? I remember you. You said get off the car. Fuck you talking about medical? Yeah. Your ass are
Does anybody need medical? Medical!
What, yesterday or today?
Today. He just had up the gun talking about get off the car. Now he's talking about medical.
What car over in the dealership? Sorry, I don't feel.
I'm going to stop it there because there's nothing to see in the rest of this video. Did you see Jason Lukowski at any point in this video?
No, but the camera never panned to the rear either.
Sure, I understand. I'm just asking if you saw him. Okay, fair enough. So you indicated that you went over to the Ultimate Gas and then eventually back to 59th.
I headed towards 59th.
Okay. When is the next time, after what we've just saw here, when is the next time you saw the defendant that night?
I didn't see him again that night.
At all?
Outside of a picture, no.
All right. I would like to play exhibit number 18 at that timestamp I indicated, please.
Things are a lot more peaceful now.
The cops decided to gas the fucking area.
Yeah.
Here I am walking the EMT around, protecting his ass. Now the EMT's working out.
Seconds. We missed a little bit of the beginning of this. A little bit further? Yeah, let's play there, please.
And we'll see how this goes, since everyone seems to be peaceful now with the militia. Seems like things are a lot more peaceful now.
The cops decided to gas the fucking area.
Yeah.
Here I am walking the EMT around, protecting his ass. Now the EMT's working out.
Pause that for a second. You saw yourself in that video.
Yes.
You mentioned that the police decided to gas something or other. I didn't quite catch it all. What were you talking about there?
I was talking about when they gassed the 59th Street location.
When you say they, you mean the police?
Yes.
When did that happen?
In the video where they show them throwing me and the defendant a bottle of water, it's like immediately preceding that.
So why do you know what was going on that caused the police to?
They saw that we had protesters standing in and amongst us, and it seemed like they didn't care for that too much.
Okay. Were you affected by that gas?
Yes.
How so?
Well, I'd already been hit with some sort of gas bomb from the protest crowd, and then that's when the gas hit the area. So I had to go inside and sit down for a couple of minutes.
And when you say gas, is this like a tear gas type thing?
Tear gas, yeah.
Okay. What physical effect did that have on you?
I couldn't breathe for a good minute and a half there solidly. Once I got in, sat down, the defendant helped me out with that. I was okay. For the days after, I really couldn't talk too well.
What did the defendant do to help you?
Kept shoveling water at me. So.
Did he give you any sort of medicine or anything
No.
like that? Okay. So when you're talking about the police gassing things, that's what you're referring to?
Yes.
And then you talk about something about the EMT having to guard the EMT or something like that?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
I was referring to me watching the defendant.
So you're basically saying that one of your roles was to guard and protect
that was
the
part of
defendant.
my intent for going south.
And this conversation occurs at the Ultimate gas station.
Yes.
Where is this time-wise in relation to what we had just seen, the last video where you were being followed by Richie McGinnis, and then we saw you walk east across Ultimate Gas? Where is this in relation to that?
I don't remember exactly when I had this conversation, but I would say it was probably pretty soon after that.
So this is after you walk across the street. You said you went into the store,
Yep.
grabbed some snacks or whatever, and then I think you actually said earlier you spoke to some of the folks that were. I'm trying to set the time frame for the jury, but the ultimate relevance, Your Honor, is that this witness is indicating that his role was to protect the defendant that night, and he's obviously not with the defendant at this moment.
What would be the relevance of that anyway?
Well, I think it goes to the overall issue of the safety of the defendant and the safety of this crowd, the perceived need, the perceived danger, the perceived need for protection south of 60th Street.
Perceived by whom?
By at least this individual who's close to the
What
defendant.
relevance would his perception?
Because they're part of the same group, and he's taken this responsibility, and now they're in an area where there's a perceived need to protect the defendant.
Well, why don't we take a break? Please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial. We'll see about 5 after.
He's
Pardon?
pissing off the judge.
Well, you're right. Yeah, you're right. We're going to, she's correct. As I complained about that clock before, we're going to start at 4 o'clock of actual time and pay no attention to that clock because you won't be able to see from the jury room anyway. Okay. 4 o'clock actual time, Central Standard Time. Well, whatever.
So in
whatever.
13 minutes, they're going to be coming back.
They know how precise I am about times anyway.
All right, guys. So what do you guys think's going on here? Freaking. Oh, here comes Brownie. Now we're in trouble. And there's Panda. Now where's Donnie? They left Donnie outside. Where's Donnie, Brownie? I hear him. Here he comes. Donnie. What's up, monster? Donnie, stop. I don't think his lead will reach all the way over here. So what do you guys think? This is just a pain in the ass. This freaking prosecutor, he's a little bitch. He's wasting everybody's freaking time, right? Let me see. Let me put a camera back up on here so you guys can see who's talking.
Not supposed to do that. Oh, man.
Oh,
Seems
but
like it's been going on forever.
what did they say they're not supposed to do? You hear that?
We had Mr. McWilliams or McGinnis. We had Mr. McGinnis, and we took a break. And that's when.
Oh, they cut the audio, you assholes. Hold on. Let's see.
This has been on.
What were they not supposed to say? Hold on. Let me
This current witness, how long has he been on? How about 2 weeks? It's been on.
Well, like I said, I think we broke it. It was like 22.
I thought they talked about somebody talking to somebody.
We had Mr. McWilliams or McGinnis. We had Mr. McGinnis, and we took a break. And that's when.
Hold on, I didn't go back far enough, I guess.
Which you won't. Well.
Trying to hear it. Come on, say it again.
We're gonna do Subway tomorrow, so they'll get the orders in the morning.
Well, they get Subway tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds good. This seems like an 8:20. What's that?
Marcus having his picture, just walking back.
Oh, they took a picture. Somebody took a picture of the witness.
Oh, man.
Or maybe the juror.
Seems like it's been going on forever.
Well, like I said, I think we broke it. It was like 22.
The judge's like, man, this thing's been going on forever. You hear that?
We had Mr. McWilliams or McGinnis.
This prosecutor's pissing off the judge. Let's put it that way. They are definitely pissing off the judge. Oh my gosh. They want to wrap this up before the holiday? I know, right? Which one? You talking about Christmas? Are you talking about Christmas? That's the holiday they're probably trying to wrap it up before. Jeez Louise. Oh my gosh. What's up, Panda Bear? Freaking. You know, I hate having to sit there and watch these trials, but it's important for us. We really have to watch these trials, right? See how the court process works. See how, I mean, just see the crazy shit. I mean, like, look at this prosecutor just asking stupid questions. He's just trying to prolong it, right? Because he knows he lost. He lost the day he had his opening freaking comment. Jeez Louise, man. Right? Out of the Kansas sounds like New Year's, right? I don't know. This guy's they're gonna take forever. They're totally gonna take forever. Shit. You know what? It's taking so long. I think I need to have a shot of Crown Royal. What do you guys think? Ooh. Tastes like caramel candy. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. Let's see, what else can we watch while we're waiting? I wonder if there's any, oh shit, we can watch more of me. You guys know I love watching me. I love watching my videos. I'm trying to remember what was on.
Our streets!
Trying to remember where we were going here. Oh, we're going downtown. This is right before I lose fucking service. Let's see if, let's see what we got going on. I mean, we can watch some Crowder. Deep Blue Sea 3. Really? They made 3 of those movies? Who watched the frickin' third one, or the second one even? We can probably watch some You Laugh, You Lose or something. We can watch Poker. These shows are funny. Can't Pay, We'll Take It Away. Dude, these are crazy. In, like, the UK if you don't owe somebody money, they can go to court. And then when you go to court, if you lose, then they can take it to this next step, and it's like $60, and then they send these guys out, and they take it. They'll like, you got to pay this much money plus our fees, and you're like, hey, I ain't got no money, I'm not gonna pay it. Then they say, okay, we're taking your car. Oh, you see your microwave right there? We're taking that. I am not joking. Eddie, show when you and Drunk Donnie and Ty were on the Vegas Strip. Okay, we can do that. You want to see us on the Vegas Strip? That was a while ago. Let's see. Las Vegas. Let's see. That was the Fresno Fair, so I was right after. Live from the Las Vegas Strip.
Oh, I guess we're live already.
Oh no! Whoops! I forgot to change the name of that one. How about this one? Were we at the Strip?
Sweet boy. Ready, monster? Come on, Donnie.
Kind of boring though, because so many people stop me.
I'm feeling you, guys. Yeah.
Ooh, hello, ladies. Hello.
No, I'm not gonna do a swan dive into the lake.
Oh, yeah, that one. You know what? That's a good one. Eddie Block. Sorry, hold on. The Golden Gate Bridge one. That was pretty funny. Let's see. Tonight, what the heck? Sorry. Not sorry. Let's see. See, I don't come up in. I don't come up at all in searches. That's why I have so little followers, because YouTube censors me so much.
My way, dog.
Want this one?
Fuck up. Sorry. What are you doing, bro? You in my way? You in my way, bro? You in my way. You been my way.
Hey, what's up, guys? You know you like.
Yeah,
my
Donnie
videos.
did
Hit
get
that
all the
like
chicks.
Subscribe button down there.
What's going on, guys? So we were at the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday at a march with the Trump flags, and I filmed everybody walking across, and then I was waiting for everybody to come back so I could film them coming back over. When all of a sudden I got interested, I'm like, well, where the heck are they? It was taking forever. the guy at the church? Yeah. So I go and I pop up Ben's live film so I can see where he's at. And there's this Antifa guy just chirping in his ear and spitting on his face.
Get out of my face, bro.
And then there's a shorter, chubbier one that's just like nonstop F you and like starting fights. And it looked like somebody got in a fight. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I gotta go. I gotta go help. So I took my scooter. I hauled Bud over there. Not really hauled Bud, because that scooter's slow as fuck and the battery was dead.
I was just watching Ben's live stream, and Antifa showed up, so I want to go get in there and see what I can do. You see Antifa's going after Ben. Antifa's up back here.
That was Jason from Mario Express.
Are they still messing with Ben over here? Yeah. All right, I gotta go get him.
Probably took me a good minute to get there. That's how far away they were.
Probably 2 minutes,
And I see Colin Kaepernick, but I didn't see as much him doing all the talking as the other guy. And I'm going down the middle, and the guy's not looking, and I'm like, you know what? Here's my chance, and I just plowed right into him and pushed him up against the bridge.
Where are these punks at? Oh, there they are. There they are. Hey, it's a wannabe Colin Kaepernick.
Fuck up.
Hey,
sorry. What are you doing, bro? You in my way.
Sorry,
you in my way, bro. You in my way. You ran right in there. Sorry, bro.
And every time I said sorry, I hit the gas.
Yeah, right? You see that?
Yeah.
That's assault. That was assault.
Now, a few minutes earlier, these guys were saying, fuck the police.
You jumped right in my leg, bro.
Hey, it's a wannabe Colin Kaepernick.
Fuck up. What are you doing, bro? You in my way. You in my way, bro. You in my way. You ran right in there.
And actually, if you hear the police officer, he says, will you stop moving your cart or something like that? And I put my arm out like this so the guy can't move anymore. Because basically, he was attacking my friends. And I felt it was my job to stand up and stop it. Because you know what? It's good for a while. Ooh. But then it's not good anymore. I don't know why the hell I said that. Antifa
I'm not afraid of you. And that's the word of the day, guys. Don't be afraid of these Antifa thugs. Because if you run away and you let them do this, they're going to continue to do this. Look at Portland. Everybody's afraid of them up there. Do you want that to happen in every single city? Do you want them coming to your city and doing that to you? I don't think so. So we better stand up now before it gets too big. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and beat up people. But
Maybe
don't
I
run
am.
away from them. Don't let them do this to you. I'm a guy on a scooter. And people are going to say, oh, he thinks because he's in a wheelchair that he's not going to get hit. I see these people attacking old people. I know that they're going to hit me. But I'm not afraid. Because I'd rather die
Yeah, I'll get
for
my
my
new scooter
freedom
soon, hopefully.
than to let these guys overtake me. My dad served
It's gonna
in the
go
Air
4
Force.
times
My
as fast.
stepdad served in the Air Force. My uncle was in the Army in Amsterdam and was a brigadier general. My whole family stood up for their country. Because I was born with a disability, I'm not allowed to. So you know how I do it? By making these videos and showing you what the left is doing. Don't let them do it. Stand up, America. Stand up.
Let's see. Hold on, wait a minute. Oh wait, what about Beverly Hills when I actually fought that guy? Or not Beverly Hills, Eddie Block, this one was my backup channel, right? Eddie Block Films, oh my gosh, Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach. I think that one's good too, when that guy tried to take my water bottle. Remember that one? Right about...
Fucking put my shit down. And I'll stand up.
Remember these guys?
There's no such thing as white power. You guys are the racists. Hey, bro, anytime you want to step up, bro, just don't sit on me. I'll step to you right now. What are you gonna do? Fucking let's do something, bro. Come on, do something. Fucking do something. What are you gonna do?
Fat
I'll
piece of
fucking
shit
put my camera down right
Antifa
now and I'll fucking put
motherfucker.
my shit down. And I'll stand up. And I'll stand up. Let's go.
So I took my camera, set them all down.
You guys want to fucking start shit and act like you're gonna threaten me? I'll put my shit down. Let's go. You are. You're all talking shit.
How are you so fucking terrified by your own goddamn shadow? You're
I'm not
literally
terrified.
scooting around picking fights.
I'm not picking. You're the one walking by.
I'm
calling me a
terrified,
coward.
so I'm picking fights.
Prove that I'm a
Rolling
coward.
around with 7 cameras in every fucking direction. Good thing you did.
That's what I thought.
Okay, you're right. You're right about everything.
I am right about everything. I am right about everything.
You're a goddamn genius.
You're a straight up bitch, motherfucker. Then do something about it, bro. Fucking call me a bitch again, bro. Fucking do it. Get the fuck away from me calling me a bitch, punk. I will knock you the fuck out. I will knock you the fuck out, bro.
Fucking Eddie's best words.
If you stand up and you put your hands on me, that changes everything.
That
Just
changes
stand up.
everything.
Put my hand on you.
No, hit me.
I just touched him. I said I put my hands on you.
You're the one calling me a bitch. Fucking do something about it, bro.
He's waiting.
Hey, come on, bro. Give me my fucking shit back, bro. Give me my fucking shit back, bro. Give me my fucking shit. No, it ain't, bro.
Now watch this. Y'all think I'm just gonna fucking
Come here, you stupid
let her take my
motherfucker.
shit? Nah, not
Give me
me.
my shit back, bro. Give me my shit back.
Now you see me punching him. Yeah. I don't take shit from nobody. I don't give a shit who the fuck you are. Right? And so people say, oh, Eddie, you do the shit you do because you're on a scooter and you know people won't fight you. Bullshit. You just saw right there. I don't take shit from nobody. You don't fuck with me. I handle my own. Just saying, right? I'm just fucking saying. I've had 60 fucking operations all on my back. I can barely fucking walk. But Antifa, you want to step up? Then step the fuck up. And you know that guy was BLM. Well, BLM can step the fuck up too. Because you guys are fucking a bunch of pussies. Let's see.
Train's coming down.
Oh, they're coming down. They're already back.
Would you come down, please?
Dang, I was going to show when I got in the fight in Sacramento. Where's the one when I got in the fight with Sacramento? Oh, there's one the Antifa dude hit me with the chain. We'll play this while we're waiting for him to come back.
That's it, bro. He's puking because he's seeing a little bit of freaking real men and he got scared.
Yep. Dude, we just started talking to that dude and we made that dude fucking throw up. We're bitch ass Antifa. This is all that happens in Sacramento.
If you like my videos, hit that like and subscribe button down there. Hey, what's up, everybody? So, of course, the left are saying I antagonize the kid, and that I should push it way too far. So, let me show you why. If you noticed in the live video, I was talking, and I was staying a point, and all of a sudden I stopped. Because I saw this kid swinging the chain at a lady. Which I'll show you right here.
Like, I met that lady a couple months later, and we kind of started talking.
So, guys, that just shows you.
He's swinging the chain at this lady.
Alright, guys. So I'm stopping it right here. Because now you see the guy was swinging it. He was about to swing it at this woman. And you see he sees me coming. You see how he's looking. He's staring straight at me while that guy's screaming, "Jesse, come help."
Yeah, this was on Alex Jones' show. Alex Jones showed this video.
Why I went up to him.
That's how I got to meet Alex Jones.
Because when he first showed up on the property, he was walking with a friend, and I saw the chain behind his back. And so I just followed him to watch him. Looks like we got some Antifa going right here. Why this guy just got a chain on him?
Good afternoon, folks, again. By the way, how are the calzones?
All right, I'll show it next break.
You can be seated.
Or you guys can watch it. Just look up Sacramento Antifa BLM Proud Boys.
How about...
where are we?
The staff down here ate all the chips before I got any, but
oh, now you're really pissed off the judge. You ate all his chips.
Okay, good. Let's go.
Oh, they're gonna take a minute.
These are definitely Antifa. Let's just kind of follow these guys. And
Mr. Balch, I want to show you another video.
All right, we're back to the trial.
Evidence. This is Exhibit 11. This is the Corey Elijah.
Get me off the screen now.
Live stream. We've got it paused here at I believe that's the 54-minute and 30-second mark. Or to be precise, 54:29. Do you see yourself in this video?
I do.
Okay. We're going to play this video forward for about 20 seconds, and then we'll pause.
Okay.
Okay, he's not wearing body armor. They kept saying he was wearing body armor. That's not fucking body armor.
That's fireworks right down there.
I don't see any metal plates on him.
I don't know what that is. You young kid.
Now, Mr. Balch,
All right, I'll turn down my audio.
In that video, it showed you walking near the gas price electronic sign there for the Ultimate gas station. Would you agree with me on that?
I would.
And you appear at the end here to kind of walk behind that, almost at the corner of 60th and Sheridan. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Did you just see the defendant run through the screen?
I saw him, yes.
Now, you had testified earlier that when you were at the Ultimate gas station, you were looking for him. It appears that you were within 10, 15 feet of him. Did you see him at that time?
No.
If you had seen him, what would you have done?
I would have went with him.
Is it after this point, then, that you returned to the 59th Street car source?
I headed in that direction, yes.
And you said you didn't make it there because why?
Shooting started.
What shooting was that?
I had to point at the thing.
Sure.
I headed across 60th. The Bearcats were right here. When I got there, a sheriff's deputy held me over to the car. I'm at the Bearcat. He opened the door. I sat there and had a 2 to 3 minute conversation with him, maybe about what was going on over there. At that point, he directed me to go behind the Bearcats to go across the street. So At about that point, I moved west across Sheridan Road. When I got there, I turned to go north, and that's when I heard a pistol shot. And then almost immediately following it, I heard 4 rifle shots.
What did you do then?
I turned and headed south.
Where did you go?
Towards where I'd heard the shooting. So I was right around in here, and I ran across the street into this green area here, telling everybody to get down. And then I got to the end, overlooking this area here. There's like a low wall. And then shooting erupted behind me over in this general area.
When you say this general area, can you point the pointer at that again, please? I'm
Yes.
sorry I missed that. You're pointing to the area along Sheridan Road, south of 60th, sort of in front of the Boost Mobile and Check and Go?
Correct.
Again, we're going to try and play this artificial thought process.
Right.
I know you probably know now what that was, but let me just ask, first of all, at the time, the shooting you just described, at that time, that night, did you know what was going on?
I had no idea what was going on.
With the benefit of hindsight and watching all the other videos now, what was that, if you know?
The first shooting that I heard, the pistol shot and the rifle shots, whereas the engagement between the defendant and Rosenbaum and the people that were with him down here. The secondary shootings would have been Anthony Huber and Gage Gorowitz.
Is that Gage Grosskreutz?
Grosskreutz, yes.
Okay, it's kind of a difficult name. Can I just ask, Mr. Balch, when you were, where were you specifically when you heard or observed the shootings of Mr. Huber and Mr. Grosskreutz?
I didn't visually see them. I heard them.
Okay.
But I would have been right in this area right here.
Do you know if the shootings of Huber and Grosskreutz were further north of where you were at on Sheridan or further south, if you know?
It sounded like they were coming from behind me, so they would have been to the north.
Okay. We're going to have another video. It's just going to take a second to set it up. This is going to be Exhibit 5. It is the BG on the scene video. And I'm going to be playing a portion at the end. Can we rewind just a little bit from there, please? Keep going back. Keep going back. Keep going. All right, play from there, please. This is at the 43-second mark in the video. We've already had some testimony about this video, but Mr. Balch, do you see anyone that you know in that video?
No.
Okay. There's an individual there that is standing. There's two individuals that I see on that screen. The one on the right is kind of in all dark and appears to be holding a rifle of some sort. Do you know who that is?
I have no idea.
Okay, can we back that up again about 10 seconds, please? And then we'll play it forward.
That would appear to be me.
That's you, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're actually, at this point, north of where the Huber and Grosskreutz shootings occurred. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
So when you said earlier you were south of it, it turns out you were actually north.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did? Actually, before I ask that question, we can see in this video that the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, is walking up the street after he has just shot and killed Anthony Huber and just shot Gage Grosskreutz in the arm. At the time, and I know with the benefit of hindsight you've watched these things, but at that particular moment, had you any idea what had just happened?
No.
Did you see those shootings?
No.
Did you see the defendant?
No.
You've been trained in the military, been around shootings before, fair to say?
Yes.
How is it possible that you didn't see those things?
I wasn't looking down the street when it happened.
Did you hear those gunshots?
Yes.
Did they draw your attention to that area?
Yes.
Did you look?
Yes.
So how come you say you didn't see?
Because by the time I got that far, close enough to see it, everything was done.
Did you see the bodies? The body of Mr. Huber?
Yes.
At what point, when you're moving down the street, did you see him? See that body?
After I got to Grosskreutz, when I got down there, Jason Lekowski was helping put a tourniquet on his arm. There's actually a video of that where I come around the side and ask everybody's all right if they got it. Saw the wound on Grosskreitz's arm. Holy crap. And then I ran over to check Anthony Huber's body.
When we've played this video before, we've heard a lot of people's voices shouting out about the defendant. That's the guy, whatever, things like that. Did you hear any of those voices at that time?
I wasn't really trying to pay attention to what they were pointing out.
When in this process did you realize that an individual or individuals, people, had been shot?
Well, I'd heard the shooting, so I knew that there was shooting going on. I didn't know anybody had actually been hit until I got to Grosskreutz.
Is it fair to say that this wasn't the first time all evening that you'd heard gunshots?
We had heard them a couple of times throughout the night.
When you would hear gunshots, would you wonder if that meant someone was injured?
Most of the time they were far enough in the distance that there would be very little impact from us going in that direction.
I think you testified earlier that what originally started you heading south was hearing the pistol shot and the 4 shots that occurred at Car Source and 63rd.
Correct.
And that, according to the map, is about 3 blocks away.
Correct.
You talk about hearing other gunshots that are in the distance. Why did the shots here 3 blocks away attract your attention when others did not?
They were a lot closer than the other ones had been, and there was the potential that people that I was with that night were down there.
Did you think to yourself, that's the defendant?
No.
You didn't know, did you know where he was at?
I didn't know where he was at, but I didn't assume who had been doing the shooting.
When we see you in this video, is that after you have looked for the defendant?
Yes.
When we see you in this video, did you have any idea where the defendant was?
No.
When we see you in this video, had you checked at Ultimate Gas to see if the defendant was there?
Yes.
Did you find him?
No.
When we see you in this video, had you already traveled north of the police line at 60th?
Yes.
Had you seen the defendant up there?
No.
Is it fair to say that at this moment in the video, you didn't have any idea where the defendant was?
I had no idea where him or Jason Lekowski were.
And even though he's walking up the middle of the street near where you're at this point in the video, you didn't see him?
I didn't pay any attention to him, no.
Who is the first person who's shot by the defendant that you went to?
Grosskreutz.
Did you help to treat him at all?
I made sure that Lukowski had everything under control. I saw that he had a handgun in his hand. I already knew that a pistol shot had been fired and some rifle shots. I kind of assumed he was the person that shot the pistol shot. But as far as who had shot him, I had no idea. In fact, for a minute there, I thought it was Lukowski.
Who had shot Mr. Grosskreutz?
Yeah, because he was already there.
After you dealt with Mr. Grosskreutz, what did you do next?
I ran over to Anthony Huber.
Tell us about that.
He was laying kind of slumped over in the gutter a little bit there in the street. There were a couple of protesters kind of around him. When I ran up on him, they ran off. I started to roll him over, check on him, put my hand on his neck to see if there was a pulse or whatnot, and didn't feel one, but it was really just like a split-second check, and then the Bearcat pulled up next.
When you say Bearcat, you mean one of the armored law enforcement vehicles? And what, if anything, did those folks do?
They climbed out. They told me they were going to take him, so I kind of gathered up his stuff that was laying on the ground, put it on him, helped him load him up in there.
What did you do next?
I continued south.
Now, I know you described what you've done so far with Mr. Huber lying there. Did Mr. Huber say anything?
Mr. Huber was deceased, as far as I'm aware.
So at the moment you came upon his body, he was already dead?
So far as I know, yes.
And you said you continued south after that?
Correct.
Where did you go?
I went to the 63rd Street location.
What did you find when you were there?
On the way down, I heard protesters saying somebody else had been shot down there, and I could hear shooting going on at the 63rd Street location, or thereabouts.
What did you do once you got to the 63rd location?
Once I got there, I had somehow on the run picked up a couple of folks associated with the protest who were armed as well. Mr. Lukowski came in not too soon after that. Because you could hear the shooting coming from this area over here. And there were protesters kind of like huddled over into here.
I just want to make a record, Mr. Balch, because we need to be able to have everything typed in. So if I could just describe what you've just shown us, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think you had pointed the pointer at the 63rd Street area in the block west of Sheridan Road between there and, is that 10th Avenue? Yeah, between Sheridan and 10th Avenue. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
And I know you indicated there was an area where, did you say there were gunshots that you heard coming from?
Yes.
Can you again point so I can make sure I am, okay. You're describing the area that is sort of the west half of the block between Sheridan and 10th Avenue along 63rd on the north side of 63rd. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And you indicated you heard some gunshots from that area?
Yes.
Do you remember how many?
There were quite a few.
Did you see anybody who was doing the shooting?
I didn't visually see anybody shooting, but once we moved into this area right next to the building. I kind of popped around into those cars. There were like 2 or 3 cars over in there. And it looked like this building right here was where it was coming from, but there were also shots coming from further back.
Okay.
And
if I could just please make a record of all the things you just described. You indicated that you were in the car source lot near the building on the car source lot and kind of looked around it. Is that right?
Correct.
Would that have been along sort of the south of that building looking west?
Would have been in the south looking down to the west, correct.
And you indicated that you saw something, you described a building, and I think that building was at the southwest corner of 10th Avenue and 63rd Street. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate.
What did you see again or observe at that location?
It looked like there was somebody standing in the second floor window, and they looked to be holding a gun. To get a better look, I kind of moved out into the cars and faced in that direction. As soon as the person in the window saw me, they ducked around the corner. And then bullets started coming from the west and started hitting the car that I was hiding behind.
The person you saw in the window, is this a window of a house?
It looks like a house, yes.
This is someone inside a house holding a firearm?
They may or may not have been.
And then bullets came from the west and hit the vehicle that was near you?
Correct.
Did any of those hit you?
No.
What did you do as a result of that?
One of the folks associated with the protest was behind the car with me. I told him to get behind the car source building, and we scooted around behind the building real quick.
What happened then?
That point, there was a white car that had caught on fire. The gas tank went off on it. Kind of poked their heads back around. By that time, SWAT was directly behind the building from car source. And they're like, hey, somebody's over here shooting, get the fuck back around. So we just stayed over there.
This is after everything relevance.
Searching for the relevance, Mr. Binger.
That's fine. Let me skip ahead for a moment. Can we show exhibit number 13 at the 2140 mark, please? You had testified that when you went down to the 63rd Street location, you saw that plastic bag on the ground. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm going to have an image of that up on the screen, and I'd like you to take a look at that when it's ready here. Is this at the 2140 mark?
Yes, that is a car fire, but there is more than just a car fire going on here. All right, guys, it looks like there's an interview going on. We're going to see if we can squeeze in on this.
Timestamps mixed up there. We're going to play a little bit of that video here. I'd like you to take a look at it if you could, please. Thanks.
All right, guys, so here's what we got going on. We are not trying to spook anyone. looks like
Okay, just play the video, please. Thanks. Mr. Balch, there's an object on the ground on the left side of this view screen. Do you see that object?
Yes.
Can you identify that for us?
That's the plastic bag that I picked up to take a look at.
That's the one that Mr. Rosenbaum threw. Is that correct?
Correct.
A couple more things finally. After all is said and done here, you stayed at this location and spoke to some individuals who were from the media. Is that fair to say?
We kind of got ambushed by them.
Well, make it sound like they were trying to attack you. They came up and were...
Yeah, they came up out of nowhere and we weren't expecting them.
When you say we, who was with you?
Jason Lekowski was with me.
When these folks asked you your name, what did you tell them?
I gave them a false name of Thomas Craig.
Why did you do that?
To protect my identity so that I could get out of there and figure out what was going on.
There were folks there that showed you video of what had happened that night.
Yes.
In those view screens, were you able to see the defendant?
One of the live streamers did show me a picture of the defendant when he was laying on the ground being struck on the head, I believe, when he fired his weapon.
From that, were you able to identify that that was someone that you had been with?
Yes.
That evening? Did you admit that?
To them, no.
In fact, when they confronted you on it and accused you of knowing exactly who that was, you lied to them and told them you did not, correct?
Correct.
And when I discussed this with you, you gave me the explanation that because you were concerned for your safety at that time?
Yeah, we were surrounded by several people, and there were groups of them milling around us as well.
At that moment that you lied about knowing the defendant, you still had your AR-15, correct?
Correct.
And your Glock?
No, I didn't have the Glock at this time.
And Mr. Lekowski was with you?
Yes.
Was he armed?
Yes.
Were there police cars nearby?
Further down the street from us, yes, but they were dealing with the shootings and whatnot.
Once you were informed that the defendant was the one who had been involved in these shootings, was a suspect, did you approach the police that night and tell them about your information?
No.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Just 1 second. Does anybody need a break? Go ahead.
Broad question. That evening, while you were out on patrol with my client Kyle Rittenhouse, you're armed, he's armed.
This is correct.
And you went by law enforcement on numerous occasions?
Yes.
Did anybody ever tell you you can't be out there with these weapons?
No.
Did anybody ever question you or him about your age?
No.
You were interviewed several days after this by the FBI, correct?
Correct.
And they specifically asked you about that bag, correct?
Correct.
And reading from the report, you told them you examined the bag quickly and observed an ammonia mixture and a small bleach bottle, correct?
Correct.
Is that what you observed?
That's what I thought I'd observed at the time.
By smell?
I didn't check the smell.
Okay. What made you think it was ammonia?
Because of what we'd been hit with earlier in the night.
And when the bomb had been hit earlier in the night, Mr. Rosenbaum was there with that bag, correct?
Yes.
Now, you testified that when you were out there that evening at the end, you didn't have your Glock, correct?
Correct.
You had borrowed it to Nick Smith?
He told me his name was Nathan, but yes.
Okay. So you were using a pseudonym, false name?
Correct.
Nathan was using a false name?
Yes.
Did he give you a false name or did he say Kyle Rittenhouse? I'm pointing to my client.
I don't remember if he gave me a pseudonym or not. He went by Kyle most of the night when he was talking to me.
Kyle.
Yep.
You refer to a man and a woman who you always saw with Rosenbaum, correct?
Correct.
Can you describe that man?
He was tall, scraggly looking with a beard.
Okay.
He had like camo shorts on too, I think.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the top?
I can't remember the color of the top specifically.
Yeah. Do you remember anything specifically about the woman?
She had a black backpack on. She was a little heavy set, maybe.
Do you remember anything about her hair?
I think it was dyed a bright color, maybe.
Okay. I'll show you a picture, see if you recognize these individuals.